All right. Even though your due dates for lab number 1 has passed, I'm hoping that you can still get the most out of it by maybe going over my solution, one possible solution to the problem of the Apple App Store. For those of you who have not really managed to finish your lab number 1, I will still encourage you to really try to complete it by yourself and then compare your solution against mine. And it will be very crucial for you to really understand the logic behind my solution. I'll try to do almost on a line-by-line basis for the explanation, but it may not be to the extent that I try to do for the review tutorial series due to the time constraint. Anyway, so I'll try my best, but if you really got any trouble understanding the logic of my solution, please reach out to me. You really need to make sure you understand very properly the solution, otherwise you will not be able to reproduce it or try to do a similar solution where you are seeing a new problem independently. And step number 1, of course, is to type out the code yourself, but step number 2, which is more critical, is to really understand how the everything works together. Okay, let's get started. I assume that you're ready. You can maybe import a fresh starter project for your lab number 1, and then you will see that the model package is completely empty, as you saw before. And then I'm going to look at the JUnit test cases over here, right? If I double click on that, and then let me maximize the tab. I'll go from here. And you can see under the import statement over here, I accidentally make these 4 available to you. That's something I really hope that you can derive by yourself as well. So what I will do is, for demonstration, I'm just going to delete these 4 lines. Okay, so I'm gonna make sure I import them one by one as we go. All right. And since we got it, first of all, let's see how many test cases do we have. If you simply execute the starter tests, run as JUnit test over here, and just proceed, you can see we got 13 in total, right? Of course, we passed none of them at the moment. Since we got 13, so I would say give us a little bit stress, a little bit less stress. In order to do that, I would suggest we comment out everything but the first test, and then we'll uncomment one by one. That'll be the strategy I would suggest, maybe for your subsequent labs and also for your programming tests. Okay, let's try to do that. So I will go from here. Okay, starting from here, the second test all the way to the end over here, right? All the way to the end. Okay, make sure only up to here. You don't want to include the ending curly brackets over here, right? Select it, Command or Control, and then /. So I put everything into comments. I'm gonna uncomment them as I pass the case one by one. Okay, let me go back to the beginning. Let's now start dealing with this one here. Make sure you save the file. Okay. The first one over here, right? You can see I see 2 errors over here. Let's explain that. This on the left hand side here is a type for the app updates. That means I need to create one class called log, and then it has an overloaded constructor also called log, but it will take a string value over here, and that seems to be for the version number, right? You can see here in the comments. Let's do that right away. So what I will do is I'm going to create under the model a new Java class that's called a log. You gotta spell verbatim, right? Correctly. And remember, Java is case sensitive, right? And then what I would show you is you can simply copy this just to remind yourself, right? Copy this line, and then we just go back here, and then here I'm gonna I'll declare attributes later, but let me just make sure I get all the methods. So public, and then constructor over here, and apparently I'm not sure why actually it will import over here, right? Just get rid of it. I don't need that. And the log over here, this is the argument value, just one example. So how can I generalize it into parameter? It's a string value, so I'll say string. I know that it represents some version number, so I can put version over here. That's what I can do, right? That's just enough to get things compiled, right? So we got log and we got log over here. If I move my cursor over, it says that it cannot be resolved to a type, most likely because the class has not been imported yet. So let me just go back. You can see the model class is not here. So what I can do is I can put a cursor around the end and then control space. You can see here, I'm really, when I talk about log, I'm really referring to the log in the model package, right? I just gotta make sure I do that. As soon as I do that, you can see the log from model has been imported. You can also type it out manually. That's okay. Okay, so far so good. you can see I got create a log class, create an overloaded constructor, and then I need to create several methods, right? Let's see for the get version. Where should this method create? It depends on the type of the context objects. The context object app updates has been declared as of type log. So that means this method here should really go to the log class. And then it should be called get version. Is it accessor or mutator? It should be accessor because its return value is being used to assign to a variable of type string. So that should be an accessor method in log class, taking no parameter and then returning a string, right? You can see the analysis here is very logical. Let's now go there. So in the log class, I'm going to have an accessor, always public, returning a string, and then get version over here. Okay, let me just make sure I type it correctly. Get version, right? You can see it goes away. Okay. However, you can see from this side here, every time for any accessor, you have to return something. Otherwise, Java will consider that as a compilation error. You should really have at least one return statement. But my recommendation would be have a single return for every accessor method. But for now, I'm just going to return some default value. The return type should be string. What's the default value for string? You can make it an empty string, but for in general, for reference type, you can just return null. So I would say, oh, sorry. Let me just get string back. I can say return null over here. Right, so this will compile. I'm going to fix the body of implementation here later. I'll do that. Okay. Let me go back here. And get number of fixes. Similarly, you can see the type of context objects also app updates of type log. So this method should also go into the log class. Get number of fixes, which should return something that can be assigned to integer variable. So that should be returning integer, right? Let me just copy this name over here and also taking no parameter, right? Let me come back here. So I can say public integer and then like that. And what's the default value for integer? Return 0. You can return -1 as well. Doesn't matter. At least we want to make the compiler happy first. And then I'm just going to get another one, get fixes. Similarly, the same context object. So go to the same class, log. And then get fixes is going to return a string value, right? So I'm going to go to public string over here, get fixes. And the default value I'm going to return will be null. Okay. Okay, let me go back. Right, you can see now I'm free from compilation error as far as this particular test is concerned, right? Of course, I'm trying to explain to you as I type, so it might go a little bit slowly. But if you do it by yourself silently, I think it can be much faster. Okay, but of course, if I simply run the test cases, I'm not really passing this particular one, right? You can see test log 01. I'm not passing, right? I'm gonna go a little bit faster here because you can see what's being failed. Okay, if you look at that. So if I double click on this, I'm failing this line here. It is supposed to return the version I just set into this particular constructor. It's a very typical pattern where you got some attribute value to really get initialized by the constructor, and then you can just get public accessor to really return its value, get version. Okay, so what I would do is I'm just going to create over here private. I can say maybe string version, right? It should be a string value to match version over here, and then I'm going to make sure this version is assigned to version, right? It's a very common pattern that we spoke about in the review tutorial series. For that one, hopefully you're okay. I can almost say for sure because the get version here, well, let's just double check. If you look at the get version here, it's also going to return. Get version is actually it's going to return this particular version, right? So this constructor will set the version, and this one will return the version, right? Given that this attribute is private, so that's why we need a public accessor for that. So what should we return? Well, this version. Okay, good. And then this is done. What about get number of fixes? Let's make sure we already pass, everything up to here, including this. If I run the JUnit tests, it's still failing, but if I double click on that, you can see this is the one that's failing over here, right? So the get number of fixes over here, by default, I just return 0. So I'm passing this automatically, but not for the not in a good way. So I'm gonna fix that later. Okay, and what about get fixes? Well, you can see here it's only expecting some output over here. So I would say it's a very temporary fix. Why don't I just return this value specifically? I'm gonna fix it a little bit later when we get to the later test. You will catch us. So if I go to get fixes, I'm going to say return over here like that. Okay, return. Oh, sorry, get number of fixes should still be 0. What I meant to do was this guy here, right? It should be empty string just for now. Okay, let's now go back here, and then why don't we try? We're still failing. Let's see where. Okay, let me double click on that. We're failing the last line over here, the toString method, which we need to override, right? We need to redefine. Let's do the toString method over here. So we're gonna say string public string to string, and what should it return? It seems like it should return something like this: version, some specific version number contains. Okay, let's copy this as an example. Okay, so I can just write a little bit simpler line. Okay, I can say return. I want to have some formatted string. So you definitely want to consider using string.format, but feel free to use concatenation, the plus operator, if you prefer. That's okay too. Okay, I'm gonna say string.format, which we spoke about in detail in part 1 of your review tutorial. Right, I'm gonna leave that to you. Okay, like that. Apparently, the way I see it, this part over here depends on the attribute value version over here. So this might change, but the version here is always some constant string we'll mention, and also contains and also fixes. This depends on the number of fixes over here, and this list over here depends on maybe the get fixes. That's the way I see it. Okay, of course I developed the lab, I developed the solution, that's why I know, but I think based on your observation into the comments, into the problem description, you should be able to derive the same conclusion as I did. Okay, so what I would suggest is this is going to be replaced by some string over here. This is going to be replaced by some decimal number integer, and this is also going to be replaced by some string over here. And what should be the first string? This version, the integer over here, it should be get number of fixes, right? This get number of fixes, and also this dot get fixes. That's the string. It might be a little bit too long line, so you can feel free to go like this. All right, that's how I would do it. Let's go back to start a test. In the actual test, of course, I would suggest you first of all copy and paste whatever string you're given, and think about which part might depend on the attribute value and which part might just be always the same. That's something you will have to think about, right? Okay, let's now run the test. Awesome, I got a green bar. So I'm now done with the first test. Let's now move on to the second one. Okay, for the second one, I'm just going to uncomment only that one there. So hopefully you can see the pattern now. Let's now avoid some unnecessary stress. Let's just go one at a time. Okay, we got 13 to go. Okay, so here you can see we already got a log class. We already got that constructor, so now we are okay. So this seems to be the new one I need to do. And I would say as soon as you see any methods related to the idea about a collection or a list, and then whenever you want to add very often you want to add something into the list, this really implies you have to use the part 2 review tutorial series programming tablet that we talk about, and also the written notes about point and point collector. That's also something I assume you know very well already. That's kind of the proficiency I will assume on you on the actual programming test. Okay, so now I can see the fix is going to add some string value over here, and also this is the same method. So this tells me I really need to re-implement the programming pattern. So what should I do? I go back to log class and let me now implement the programming pattern, right? Programming pattern. So this is from part 2 of review tutorial, and we're going to use that for a number of times throughout the Lab1 solution. So I'll say private some array, and since we are trying to add a single member of the array, is going to be a string, so that should be a string array. So string over here, I can call that fixes, and then I also need a auxiliary counter, right, for the two purposes. It should really tell me how many fixes there have been stored, and also number 2, where should the next fix go into the index, right? So private integer number of fixes, right? That's kind of my convention. Number of fixes over here, and then of course don't forget in the constructor is always routine, kind of the routine initialization you have to do. Sometimes for the application you may have to do it slightly differently, but I'll leave that kind of a consideration to you. And also the question is how many fixes should we do? And we do have some maximum number of fixes in the update in an update log. I forgot what the maximum limit is. You can check the magic number in your problem description. For now, I'm just going to put 100. Okay, but in the actual solution, in the real solution, right, it may not be 100. It depends on the magic number. I just don't have the instruction with me right now, so I'll just put some maximum number here. So let's say private final constant int maximum number of fixes over here, and let me just say 100 over here. Okay, and then I'm going to actually say the following. So this fixes the array new string. What should be the size? This constant over here. Okay, and then for the counter, if I don't initialize it, it's simply just going to remain 0, which is correct, but I like to explicitly initialize it. So this .nof is assigned to 0. Okay, and then we need to have that method over there at fix. Where should it go? It depends on the context object at updates, which is declared as log type. So you should go to log class, and then at fix. Let me just copy this line over here as a reminder. So it should be a public method. Let me just put it after constructor public. Okay, and then it doesn't return anything. As you can see here, the method called stands alone. And my convention is you can assume if a method stands by itself, it should be a mutator because its return value. Well, there's no return value for variable assignments or for printout statement to use. So that's why it must be a mutator. Okay, let's go back, and then public void, and then what should it take? A string value. And the string should be a member to be added into the fixes, right? So why do I call it fix over here, or f, doesn't matter. Okay, so now what should I do? Well, also standard. This fixes over here at this .nof, right? That's the second purpose about a pointer. I just reminded you, right? Tells me where to go for the next. Is assigned to fix the arguments over here, and then I should increment the counter as well. Right? This is something we spoke about many times already so far in the course. Okay, so that's the fix, and then okay, I got everything compiled over here. Let's take a look to see if we fail, which assertion actually fell. And now if I run it, it fell. But if I double click, you can see every time I run the tasks, I need to make sure I run not only the current task I'm working on, but all the earlier tasks should also pass. Right? That's a test-driven developments we spoke about in lecture 2B in week number 4. That's something I also assume you would review carefully. Okay. Okay, let's see it again. Run again, and then I want to. Oh, that's only for this one here. Let me put the cursor outside. Okay. Okay. Let's see test log 2. Double click on that. I'm failing this line over here. Get number of fixes, right? So I gotta fix that. So get number of fixes. That's kind of the first purpose for the counter, right? So that should be straightforward. What I put earlier was I simply put 0 over here. Well, what should that be? Should be the value for the counter over here. So I should say this .nof. All right. Click on that. Still failing, but let's see if we make any progress. Double click. Right. Let me do it again. Double click. This is line, right? We already passed this one here. But what we are failing is about this list. Okay. So this is what's being returned from get fixes, and what should be returned is. It's going to be a comma separated list over here, and then it's going to be surrounded by some square brackets. So the rationale is like this, the way we design. This part is actually what's going to be repeated. So we're going to repeat some string plus comma, some string plus comma if it is not the last elements. So we're going to say some string comma if the string is not the last element in the array. And also outside the loop, we're also going to surround it by some opening square brackets and some closing square brackets, right? Let me see. We only got 2 fixes over here. Oh, that's a toString method which uses the get fixes. So why don't we get this to work? And this might just work automatically. Okay. So I think that's something I thought you would learn from the first year. I might be wrong. If you didn't learn it, now would be the time to learn it properly. How do we do some conditional printing from an array. Basically, this comma here is not going to be applied to every element in the array. All is going to be applied to every element except for the last one. Okay, I'm gonna use a loop counter to control it. Okay, so now let me go to get fixes, and what I suggest is we have only a single return. So I'm gonna say string s is assigned to be empty string. Eventually, we're gonna return s. So in the middle, we're gonna massage this string value to be the proper one before it's returned. Some of you might be quite used to having some multiple return statements, break or continue. I'm gonna remind you. I'm trying to advise you. You really want to avoid those statements like multiple returns, continue or break. It will just make your code unnecessarily complicated. Okay, let's now see what we can do. So s plus equal is going to be maybe the opening square brackets and also closing square brackets. In the middle, we're going to have a loop. So we're going to say integer I initialized to be 0, I strictly less than this dot NOF, right? And you should know why we wouldn't say this dot fixes dot length, right? You should really know why. If you don't know, you should really review the notes. Otherwise, you might struggle again, either in the programming test or in the written test. Okay, and I plus plus. Let me put a question here. Why not? I strictly less than this dot fixes dot length. All right. And what should we do here? So here we want to say we definitely want to include the elements. So we're going to say s plus equal this dot fixes at precision I. That's for sure. However, for the comma, you can think about, let's say in this case. In this case, we are talking about an array of size 2. However, we're only putting comma after element 0, right? We are not putting that for element number 1. So we're not putting that in the last element. Let me just sketch another quick solution for you. What if we have just another list over here? Let's say we have string 1, string 2, and string 3. Now in this case, the size of the array is 1, 2, and 3. Where should the comma go? You should go after the first elements. You should go after the second elements, but it does not go to the third element, which is the last. We should go every element until including the second last, which will be this dot NOF minus 1. Okay. So now what I should say is if over here the counter over here is strictly less than, so what will be the last value, which we just want to make sure it's actually strictly less than the last element, which will be this NOF minus 1. Okay, think about why this should be NOF minus 1, right? Think about what's going to be the last value for I, because it's going to be strictly less than this NOF, so the last value in the last iteration will be I is equal to this NOF minus 1. And we are saying that I should be even strictly less than that because we don't want to include the last elements for the comma. Okay, if that's the case, we're going to say s plus equal comma and with a space over here. Okay, that's good. Let's see how that will help. If I run the JUnit test, now we got 2 test cases. Okay, and now we are done with the log class over here. Let's now move on to the test cases related to the app class. Let's first uncomment the test as we did before. So let's now uncomment test app 01. Okay, all the way up to over here. Okay, command or control / Okay, uncomment that. So what do we have? Apparently you can see now we have a new type over here called app that's used to declare variable app. So now we're missing this class. And also for that class, we have a constructor that's overloaded with a string value and some integer, right? And you can see the comment here, it tells you the maximum number of ratings allowed to be submitted rather than some magic number. Okay. By the way, let me fix something very quickly about our log class. Now I have the instruction available to me. Okay. You can see the number of logs, the maximum number of allowable fixes for an update log should be 10. So let me just go back to my log class very quickly. So I want to change this magic number to be 10, right? So that's something you should do. That's the correct solution. Okay. If I encounter any magic number, I will go back to the instruction. Okay. Okay. So we should really create this app class and create that overloaded constructor. So I'm just going to copy this part here that can be reused as a reference point. So I'm going to in the model class, and then I'm going to in the model package app over here. And then I'm going to say public app over here. Actually, I can copy the line I just caught. Okay. Somehow it also shows this line here is annoying, but you can just type. So that wouldn't really automatically generate this import line. Okay. So it should be a string value over here, and that's the name of the app. So I'll say name. And that's a maximum allowable number of ratings that can be submitted. So let me say integer max number of ratings, let's say. Okay, I'm going to declare attributes a little bit later. Okay, let me go back here. And then the reason that it's not showing being resolved is because we haven't imported the class yet, right? You can either try to go back to the beginning over here and say import model.app. That's one way to go. Or if you want Eclipse to generate for you, go back here, and then put your cursor at the end of the class name, control space, and then choose the app class from the model package. Okay, if you do that, you will see that line has been imported over here, right? Either way works. Let's go back here, and you can see it compiles, and then we got another method here. Now, where should this method go? Depends on the type of the context objects. The context object is app, declared to be app class. So this get name should really go to app, right? It's returning a string, right? Its value is being used for variable assignment, so we should get a get name method. Let me close the log class. I think we are pretty much done. Okay, let me now have a public and then string get name over here, and then just return now for reference type. Okay, let me maximize it. Let's go back. The next one is get what is new over here. We'll talk about how to implement this method later, but let's just get the compilation error sorted. Copy this method here, and then that should also go to the type of the app objects. The context object should also app class. You can see all the methods over here. I'm going to declare all their context objects simply app of type app over here. So that's why they should really go to the same class, right? So you should always check the type of the context object. It's really important. Okay, so now we're gonna get this method here, also return a string. All right. So I'm just going to say public string get what's new, and then return now over here. Let's go back. And what about this one here? Also go to the app class, get update history, but it's going to return an array of log. Okay. So what I'll do is it's going to return an array of log like that. And that's the method name. And you can also return now by default, just to make the compiler happy. But to make the JUnit test cases happy, we have to implement something correct. Okay, get version info. Okay, that's just another method here, which will return log, right? So we're going to say public log, like that. Of course, we have to declare that properly. This is not valid syntax. It should be generalized into some parameter. It should be a string. And get version info. If you look at the test over here, get version info. Apparently, this is a version number, right? So we can just call that version. But if you like, you can put a very generic name like a S. That's fine. But and you put something that makes sense. Version to remind ourselves. And it's gonna return some reference type over here. So return now should be sufficient over here. Let's go back, and then also get rating report, right? That's gonna go to the same class, but it's gonna return a string, right? So here I'm going to say public and string over here and get rating report return now. Okay. Let's now go back here and let's try to see which assertion we're gonna fail. Okay. If I say run, okay, I'm failing app 1, right? You can see all the previous two still pass. If for whatever fixes we did for the later tests, we'll introduce some errors into the earlier tests. That means that new fix is not good. We're gonna fix them all. Test-driven developments and regression testing. Double click, and this one here is not good. So we want to make sure get name will return the right value, right? It should just return the name, similar as before, like for the log. So why don't we declare some private attribute here? Private string name, and over here we should make sure we set things properly. For example, this.name is assigned to name. I'll worry about this number over here later when I introduce the array attributes very soon. And get name over here should return this name. Right, it's quite obvious, right? Because you can see whatever I return over here is going to match whatever I pass as arguments to the constructor. So that's why they link in this way. Constructor set it, and the accessor method return it. Okay, let's now click on JUnits. Let's see where. Okay, so this one here, get what is new. At the moment, we should only return not applicable, because there's no ratings submitted, right? For now, I'm just going to let it return this particular string. I'll fix that later to improve it. Get what's new. Get what's new. Just paste this string here. NA. And then what about the next one? Get update history, right? You can see it's going to return an array, and then what we're expecting to see. Oh, let me just make sure that's really the one that's failing. Okay, let me double click on that. Yeah. So it really should be that history.length is equal to 0. At the moment, we are having some null pointer exception, because if you see the default implementation I put, I simply return over here a null. That's why we got null pointer exception. If you try to get that length from an array that's actually null, it's going to give you a null pointer exception. That's why. Okay, so now how can we make sure we return some empty array? Empty array is very different from an array that's null. So it should the array actually exists in the memory. It's just that it has no indices available there, right? It's just size 0. So why don't I just, for now, it's a very poor solution, but just to pass this test, I can say return a new log array of size 0, just for now. That it's gonna be improved later. And then let me click on run and double click. Okay. So we still got, okay, this is what we have to return for get rating report. Okay, apparently this is for the case where we got no rating submitted, right? And let me just go back to the app and get rating report over here. I'm just gonna return this string over here. Run, and then double click. So we are failing this. So the toString method we are failing, right? You can, again, as I suggested before, why don't we just copy this example string and try to identify which one should be attributes and which one should be fixed, right? We can use string.formats always. Go back to the app over here, and then we're going to say public. Let me just give you more space over here. Public string to string over here. We can say return string.formats over here. This is the example string. Let me do it again. Double quotes and paste. Okay, and then here this will be something to get. Okay, this one it seems to be the name of the string. So the name of the app over here, right? So some string over here. So I can say this dot name over here. Current version. So this part seems to be fixed as well. Does not depend on any attributes. And this part here, I can tell you this one will depend on the get what is new, right? At the moment, it's simply NA. So I'm gonna put some string value over here as a placeholder, and that string should be replaced by the return value of this dot get what is new. Think about get what is new is gonna return to you the information for the latest version, the last element in the array for the fixes for the log. Okay, you will see that. Also for average rating over here, it's currently is NA. So NA is also let's see NA. Simply there's no rating, right? Average rating. So this could be the return value from get rating report. But let me just take a quick look over here again. So that should be NA, right? So this could be just maybe a number. So I'm not too sure. We're going to look at the further tests to actually double check. For now, I can just leave that as NA. But I think that this might be the value of maybe not directly the get rating report, because you can see the two strings are actually different. So maybe another helper method or another method we have to develop, right? Let's keep that in mind. Okay. Okay. That's what we got so far. Okay. And then if I run the test, good. So now we passed 3 test cases already, right? Let's now move on to the next one for app. Okay, let me now select all the way to over here, command or control / to uncommons. And you can see this one here, release updates. So if you read through the comments, you will see that this method here is really, abstractly speaking, is really trying to add some updates into the app, right? So you can think about an app will maintain a list of logs, and then every log has its version number. And for this one, I'll make a note to you about what you should really look into. We have also done something very similar in your review tutorial series. I got asked this question a few times in my office hour and the Q&A. Okay, again, I'm not going to repeat what you saw in the comments. That's really something you have to read, right? I can just walk you through some solution quickly. Okay. What about release updates? Apparently, the method stands alone, so there should be some mutated method. So we should really get this method here, which will take just the version string value, right? And that should go to the app class, right? You can see all the method we're gonna create is still with the context object app of type app over here. Okay, release updates. Let's go back to the app. Okay, so I can put here, or I can, the order doesn't matter, but I would like to maybe go for mutator before the accessor. That's just my preference. So public void release updates, right? And this number looks to me just like a version, right? So string version over here. And since the release updates, every time we call release updates, you can see we might call that a number of times, depending on what we need. So it's more like again, like a collection and adding element to the collection problem. So we gotta use the programming pattern again, right? Hopefully that's almost like a second nature to you about how to implement this programming pattern. So I'm going to say private array. It's going to be an array of log. I can tell you why. Because you can see when we say get update history, whenever we want to get a history for the app, it's going to be an array of log. So this really tells you an array of string may not be sufficient. So an array of log would be the way to go. And later on, if you want to get the log with a particular version number with the string version, which can uniquely identify the log. So that's why log array should be the way to go, not string array. I saw actually quite many of you actually try the string array in your solution. It may not lead you very far. What you have to do, not in the optimal, not in the simplest way. Okay, so let's say here, I'm going to say log over here is going to be like updates, right? So let me just call it updates, right? And then I'm going to also declare the auxiliary counter for the same two purposes, integer, and then number of updates over here. Number of updates. What's the maximum number of updates we can have according to the instructions? Let's take a look. Let me just bring it here. So for every app, the maximum number of update logs allowed for an app is 20, right? So that's a magic number we should put. So let me put it over here. So I can say private final int is a constant maximum number of updates, which should be 20, right? And then we should really do several things. Number one, we should really initialize the array and also the counter in the constructor. So this dot updates is assigned to a new array of type log, right? Log array over here. And what should be its size? It should be this dot, well, you don't need this for constant. Maximum number of updates over here. And then this dot NOU explicitly initialized it to be 0. Okay, good. What about release updates? Release update here, let me give you a little bit reference over here. See the add entry method in part 2 of review tutorial. Okay, you will see that that's exactly what we did. So the parameter over here is not exactly corresponding to the log that we want to put into the array. However, the information here is sufficient for us to create some log objects internally. So what I will do is I'm going to say log over here, new log, for example, NL is or new updates, NU. Okay, and then new log. Let's review very quickly what should be the information that will be taken for creating a log. If you go back to the log class, you can see constructor will just take, oh, just version. Okay, awesome. Let me go back here, maximize it, and then I just pass the version, which is the parameter over here. And once I got this log, I can put it into the array. So this dot updates at position this number of updates, right? The counter is assigned to NU, and also this dot number of updates plus plus, right? Very standard. Okay, and then over here, let's let me just fix a few things, and then we can pass more. Let's see over here. Get what is new. That one is going to return basically the version. Is going to return the information about the version. Information about the updates in the last position of the array. Think about here, the log is going to actually store an array of logs, updates over here, and then get what's new is going to return the last one in the array. So what does this mean visually? Let's try to illustrate very quickly. Okay, if you think about this is the reference of the updates array. Right, it's going to be of certain size. Okay, let's see precisely what is the size. It's going to be 20, right, at the runtime. So the index is going to be from 0, 1, and then 2, and then all the way to certain elements over here, and then let's say all the way to 19, right, from 0 to 19. So that's the updates array. Maximum size is actually 20. And then let's say, for example, if let's say this is the value of NOU, the number of updates, right? This tells you that everything before that is going to be occupied by certain non-null references, right? So everything up to over here is going to be occupied. So I just color them using orange. More specifically, what will be the last one in them? The last one is going to be over here, and its index is going to be NOU minus 1. So this is how I derive the expression NOU minus 1. It should not be NOU. NOU tells you where the next non-null reference of log is going to be stored. So this part here should still be null, right? This one at the moment should still be null. So you really want NOU minus 1. Okay, so that's something I want to just tell you. All right, so let's now go back to get what is new. So rather than returning this, I'm going to return some very simple expression. So this dot get this dot updates over here, and this dot NOU minus 1, right? That's something I will get, and then I'm just going to return its string description, which we declare, which we define. You can go back to the log class and then see how the toString method was defined. However, we're going to do this conditionally, right? So that what I would suggest is I'm going to say string s is empty string at the beginning, and then if, how do we know how many updates there are? Well, it should be indicated by the counter NOU, right? That's the first purpose for the counter. So I can say if this NOU equals 0, that means it is empty. In that case, we should really return whatever that was expected before. That should be NA over here, right? It's simply not applicable. In this case, the string s will be equal to NA. Otherwise, it's going to be s is reassigned to over here, this expression over here. So I really don't want to have multiple returns since I advise you not to do so. I'll try to obey that myself. So I just return s. Again, the big picture is we have declares a local variable here, eventually return its value. Here, we're just trying to massage its value. And we're doing that conditionally. Either when this number of updates stored in the app is 0, which we passed before, but we're not going to do it properly. Otherwise, if it's not 0, it's going to be guaranteed. There's at least one element there. So this .NOU is going to be at least 1. At least 1 minus 1 is going to be at least 0. So that's a valid index for the array. Okay, let's now see if there's anything else I can do. And also get update history, right? So let me just try to run the test and see which one we should really look into, right? I don't want to go too far without having to run the test cases, right? Remember, test-driven developments, you want to run for almost every single fix you actually test. Okay, still red bar, but I can double-click on that. Okay, so what's really barking us is really line number 196. It's about get update history, right? This is also something that we did in your review part 2 as well, right? I also give you a reference to actually look into. Okay, there's also kind of standard way of doing things to collect the array of element that's being stored so far that's not now. Okay, so C, I believe that's get entries. And there's another method there, which is get a private entries array. That's another method I want you to contrast as well. That's something we cover in the review tutorial. Get entries in review series part 2. Okay, so what should we do over here? So we should really have some local array. So log over here, okay, update history. Let's say update history. I'll say UH. And then what should be the size of the update history? Should be new and then log. It should be corresponding to the size of the corresponding to the number of updates that have been stored so far. That should be the counter, this.nou. Eventually, I want to return UH, update history. How should I massage the value? Well, I should really go over the current array, this updates over here. I strictly smaller than this dot updates, right? I should not really include, this .nou, right? I should not include the value for NOU, but only up to and including NOU minus 1, as I explained in this diagram over here, right? This diagram is really important for your understanding. Okay, and then I'm going to say I++. And what should we do? We should say UH at index I is will copy the value from the source array, which would be this updates over here at position I. Okay, this is actually very standard, but you should really know why this will actually work, right? Think about if this is my updates array, and what I'm trying to do over here is to have the UH local array over here, and its size is going to correspond to NOU. NOU is actually going to be, since the index will start with 0, the size is going to be just NOU, right? So go all the way to from 0 to NOU minus 1. So this is the array that we are going to create over here. So it's going to be 0 all the way to NOU minus 1. So its length dot length is actually going to be equal to NOU. Right, that's kind of the observation from the programming pattern that you learned from before. Okay, so that's the UH, and then what we want to do is we want to make sure for example here, for every null reference over here, for example this array over here, we want to make sure the corresponding index in UH is going to point to the same objects over here. For example, UH at position 0 is going to copy the updates at position 0. You can see the correspondence over here, 0 and also 0, right? You can see at index 0 over here is going to point to wherever update 0 is actually pointing to, right? That's what we're doing. Okay? And we're going to patternize it using a loop. That's exactly what I'm doing here. So that's why it should be UH on the left-hand side rather than this updates on the left-hand side. Make sure you understand it. Otherwise, you're going to reach out to me as soon as you can. All right, that's about get update history. And then we also get version info. I'm pretty sure you'll be covered very soon by the test cases. Let's follow the test cases. And if I rerun the tests, let's see, still failing, but let's see which line. Double click. You can see this is the one we are failing. Get version info, right? So given this particular string value, we want to return its log, right? Basically, what's going to happen is this. Every log object that's stored in the array, for example, let's say over here, part of its attribute is going to be the string version, the version over here. So we want to make sure we go over the array one by one, and then for every object we are iterating through, check its version. If the version actually matches, we're going to return that particular object as a log, right? That's why the return value for get version info is actually returning a log, right? So that's the idea. It's very similar to the get products that you actually learn in review part 2. Okay, I believe, but you can double check. C get products in review series part 2. Right. So far we haven't really covered. We are not really doing something that's completely new. So everything has been covered. If you really got trouble, so that means you may not have grasped everything from your review tutorial series. So you really gotta catch up. Okay. So what should we do? I'm gonna show you the version where we're gonna exit from the loop as soon as we actually found the match. Okay. So let's say this. eventually we want to return some log, right? So I can say log result is maybe initially just null, okay? Eventually going to return the result, eventually. But now how do we massage the result, okay? Let me have some Boolean variable. Let me just, without the Boolean. I'm going to say integer I, 0i, strictly less than, very standard, this dot NOU over here, and then I plus plus. Okay, and then I'm going to say if the current one, if the current log, this updates at precision I, dot get version over here, right? I'm gonna compare against the version over here. If the version matches, so for string I'm gonna use the equals rather than equal. It gotta be equals method. That equals the version that's in the parameter, right? If this matches that, right? Or if this matches the version of updates at position I, in that case, I know that this is the one to return. So I can say result is actually assigned to this updates I. That's what I can do. Okay. You can also say this is declared as a local variable as well. Okay. Let me just show you quickly. So you can say log L is this updates I over here, and then you can return. Here updates. You can replace this part over here by L. You can also replace this part by L if you prefer less writing. I think that's fine too. Okay, you can use either way. All right, so this will guarantee you will always run this many iterations corresponding to this .NOU. That's guaranteed. But we want to say as soon as we actually satisfy this condition here, we can exit from the loop, because you might have a very large size array, but your match is actually found in the very early iteration. How can we do that? We can say Boolean. You might be saying I can simply say return the result right away. But again, I don't want you to do that in the middle of the loop to actually do return. It's known to be a very bad practice. So I can say Boolean. You can say found a match. Initially, we haven't found any match, so it's going to be false. So we're going to stay in the loop when the I is actually strictly less than this NOU and is a logical conjunction. And we haven't found the match. So exclamation mark for logical negation. Found match. Okay, so now as soon as, so in this case, when we found the match, we're going to reassign the found match to be true. As soon as this is assigned to be true, this part here is going to be false. And it's going to make this condition false. So we're going to exit from the loop. So that's also going to work nicely. Okay, so that's done. Let's now go back to start the tests. Let's see. Run the test. And now we passed 4 test cases already, right? Let's now move on to the third one. Okay. Hopefully that's not too fast for you, but I assume that you already struggled through the Lab1 quite a bit, so you know exactly where you should look at, right? So the walkthrough does not need to be as detailed as the tutorial. If you really need to find out more detail about my solution logic, reach out to me. Okay, so let's now uncommon test app 03. Okay, let me now go all the way to over here. So this will be last test for the app. Let's see. So let's see, do we have any compilation error? We do. We got something submit rating. You can, again, if you read the comments and problem description, submit rating also has abstractly is also the idea about adding some element into the array, the collection. You can think about we have a collection of rating score, and this one is just to add one more score into it. So again, we're gonna instantiate the programming pattern once more in the same class, which is app, and the app class over here. Okay, submit ratings. Let's now do it. So I would suggest we do over here. Okay, how many rating score can we have? Well, this is the parameter that actually will set the maximum size of the array rather than some magic number, right? Just different flavor. So I'm going to say private, and then it's going to be some rating score, and it's assumed to be between 1 and 5 integer. So integer array. So I can say scores, or I can say ratings. Now how about ratings over here? And then private integer counter number of ratings. So this, you can think about, we got 2 instantiations of the same programming pattern. One instantiation and second one, but they're independent of each other. They don't interfere with each other. So this will be the number of ratings, okay? And then we should also initialize them properly, right? So I can say this dot ratings is assigned to new, and then integer. And what should be its value over here, right? It corresponds to this parameter over here, right? And then I'm going to say this dot number of ratings is assigned to 0, right? Explicitly. So that's the initialization. And then what about next? We want to declare this method called submit rating, right? It's more like an add, okay? So let's now just go under release update. How about that? So public void submit rating integer, maybe some rating, or you can say score, doesn't matter. Okay, so now we're going to update that particular array of type integer over here. How do we update it? Similar, very standard. So I'm going to say this dot ratings over here, and then this dot NOR. Just make sure you for example, here you don't say NOU. It's a different counter. They should not be related to each other whatsoever, right? That's why it should be NOR. It's assigned to score, and also what should we do next? Well, you should increment the counter, NOR plus plus. Okay, that should be done. Let's now go back to, at least it will compile, but not sure if that will actually pass all the test cases. Let's see. I got a feeling that it wouldn't pass because we haven't implemented get ratings report properly. Let's now see, double click. So we are failing over here, right? Why don't I just copy this string value over here as a reference for us, right? Apparently we got this method already declared and has returning some default value. But get rating report is not implemented correctly. So that's something we got to fix right now before we can move on further. Let me go back to the app class over here. Yeah, excuse me for my running nose. All right. And let's now go back to our get rating report, which is exactly over here. Okay. One thing I want to explain quickly, right? Many of you, actually, for those of you who actually came to my office hour or in the Q&A, you're confused about actually the ratings. The ratings over here is actually simply an integer array, but somehow how can we return a string after or overall as a report? The answer is the all the score that's actually stored in the ratings array over here is only part of the information that will be included in the report. You should really get more into the report. That's the answer, right? So this is necessary but not sufficient, this array. Okay, let's take a look how we should do it. This is the reference output value. I'll put it here, right? Let's analyze it very, very quickly. Overall, we're going to say average of how many ratings. How can we know how many ratings there are? This counter, NOR, right? Which we already implemented correctly, right? We already initialize it, and also we update it whenever we submit any rating, right? That one's done already, okay? So this part here, we can, basically this is something I would like to use, the format again at the end. So this will be this.NOR, and this will be some average that we need to calculate. To calculate it, it's going to be the total score divided by number of ratings, which we know is this.NOR. And then this part here is more like a grouping of all the score, starting from 5, and then to 4, and then to 3, and then to 2, and then to 1. That's basically what we have. I believe this should be a closing round parenthesis. Okay, let's just keep this in mind, and let's see what we can do. And again, we're going to do that conditionally. When there is no ratings, this should be the string that should be passed. That's why we passed the earlier test, right? Let me cut this one, okay? And I want to have conditional. Let's say string and then report. Initially empty string. Eventually, I want to return the value for the report. And in the middle, I'm going to massage this one conditionally. So I can say, first of all, if this NOR is actually equal to 0, in that case, I'm going to say report is reassigned to this one. That's what we did earlier, right? And I have a question for you. And this could be appearing on your written test later, okay? So question, why not this dot NOR equals this dot ratings dot length? Basically, I'm asking why we are saying when the current this.NOR is actually 0, right? Rather than saying this.NOR equals this rather than this, right? Beg your pardon. What I meant to write is this. Sorry, almost confused myself. That's what I meant. So why are we checking that this .NOR is actually 0 rather than checking the length of this array is actually 0, right? That should be some easy question for you. Think about it. Okay, I'll leave that to you. If you got trouble answering it, speak to me. Okay, so now what should we do? We should somehow calculate the total score. We should really sum up all the score, and then divide it by this .NOR, and then we are actually going to group them as well. Let me do all of them at once. I'll show you my solution. You can compare with yours to see which one's better. If you believe yours is better and easier, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to learn from you. Okay. Let's see, what should we do? I'm going to declare several things. Number one, I'm going to say integer total. Initially 0. I'm going to I'm going to accumulate all the score from the array in a moment. And then I'm going to have some separate counter. One counter for the number of score, that's actually 5. One counter for the number of score, that's actually 4, and etc. 5 counters. Okay, so let's say number of 5. Okay, initially 0. Okay, I'm going to have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, number of 4, number of 3, number of 2, number of 1. You will see how I update it in a moment. And then okay, I think I got everything ready, so I'm now going to say for integer I, just a normal procedure for going over the array. 0 I strictly less than. So now we want to go over this particular array for the rating score. That's why we need this counter here rather than this one, right? So NOR. Just don't get confused. We got 2 independent programming patterns running in parallel. You should know which one to choose from. This NOR and then I++, right? And then first of all, I want to say integer. The current score I'm looking at is this dot ratings over here. Oh, this ratings at index I. That's the current one. And then I can say total first of all plus equals score. Just make sure I update this particular counter properly. And then how do I update these 5 accordingly? Since we assume that the score is going to be either 1 or 2 all the way to 5, cannot be any other possibility. So I can say if the score is actually equal to, let's say 5. In that case, the number of rating 5 is going to be plus, right? Hopefully that makes sense to you. Else if the score equals 4, number of 4 will be plus. And similarly, else if the score equals 3, in that case, number of 3 plus. Okay, getting there. Else if score equals 2, and then number of 2 plus. And we have already talked about 4 possibility, and we assume that it cannot be any number other than 1 up to 5. So we can just say else. So that's okay. So that means number of 1 plus. Okay. For each iteration, that's kind of the job we have to do in order to keep all these counters that we have to use outside the iteration later, right? Just make sure they are properly updated. So now we got the total. So now we got to do calculation. And as you learned from the first year, whenever you want to do division, you want to make sure one of the dividends, one of the operator, like either the divisor or the dividend, either one of at least one of them should be double type. Okay, so this is what I can do. I can do some casting in a moment. I'll do that to show you. Let's say double. What's the average? Average should be equal to the total, right? Let me cast that. If you simply say total divided by this number of rating, right? This one is not going to work. You can try that, but this one is going to be integer total over here, integer divided by this .NOR, which is also integer. That's going to return the integer back to you, like a quotient without any precision. So the correct way to do that would be I can cast one of them to be a double. And to be safe, I can always use a parenthesis to force the order of evaluation. So cast this total into some double number first, and then divided by something else is guaranteed to give you a double number as well for precision. Okay, and we're going to calculate the average. Okay, and then I'm going to format this particular average to be 1 digit after the decimal points. I can say string over here, average string is string dot formats over here, and that is going to be let's see. So $.1D, right? 1F. One floating, which is one floating points. That's something I covered that in the review tutorial part 1. You can look at that as well. Okay, and then I'm just going to put average over here. Okay, I'm gonna format it as 1 digits after the decimal points. So now I got average, I got the string properly formatted. Let me just remind myself. Can I just cut this line over here? And then I'm gonna put it to remind ourselves about what to put. Okay. Okay, so now we're still, you can see we are now outside the for loop, but we're now still within the else branch over here, which is correct. So we're only doing this when the number of ratings is at least 1. Okay, let's now see how we can finish this. So now we want to format the report, right? We can say report is reassigned to, right? Okay, pretty much like the if branch, we're going to reassign the report to be something. Okay, and I would suggest we do a string.formats. String.formats over here, and I would like to reuse this particular string value over here, and then I would like to put it here. Oh, so let me put a double quote first and put it here, and then I'm gonna put different parts over here. Let's see what we should put, right? Let me first of all put a semicolon over here. Okay, average of should always be the same, but now how many ratings do we have? It's going to be some integer, $D, and we can know that about this .nor. And then ratings, so this will be the average, right? And average is exactly AVGS. That's what we have formatted earlier. Okay, this one here. And I should really replace that by some string. That's what I meant to do. And also the score for 5, the score for 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? Each one of them has been a counter that we have been maintaining inside the loop. So $D over here, $D, $D, $D. Okay, so we actually, oh, beg your pardon. So I think, let me undo a little bit. I did just one thing wrong. Okay, okay, score 3, score 5, $D, good. Score 4, $D, good. Score 3 here, and score 2 should be $D here. I just put $D in the wrong place. $D, okay. And then let's see. So that should be the number of 5, number of 4, number of 3, number of 2, number of 1. My solution may not be the shortest one, but I believe the logic is clear. So hopefully you can also follow that, right? This is only for solving this particular problem. If you see a similar problem, you may not be able to apply verbatim the solution. So that's why it's really important for you to understand the logic, and then you can be creative about whatever adaptation you need to solve a new problem. Okay, that's really the point of walking you through the solution. Okay, now let's see. There might be a mistake. I don't know, but maybe we're good. Let's now rerun the test cases, and we got some failure. Let's take a look. If I double click on that, we are failing this one over here. Okay, let's see. So this is actually a toString method. Okay, apparently we have to redefine the toString. But you can see the get rating report we actually fine, right? We already passed. So get rating report is good for now. How about toString method? So what I need is, I need this example string value again. I'm going to take that as a reference point to remind us how to implement it. Okay, let me copy that. Let me go back to the app class. ToString, okay, we already got something there, right? Let me just see. Okay, so basically what we need. So we got the name of the app, GoodNotes 5, that's all good. And also we got current version, which is fine. And then we also got version number, current version. So here this will be $S, right? $S will actually be $S will actually be this part here. This get what is new, the latest version only. We only show the latest version. You can think about this part here is get what is new. This get what is new, and then .toString, right? I think I should really put .toString over here. Okay, and then what about this part here? This part here, after the semicolon, we actually need the average score, average rating. And average rating will be something that we need to format properly, right? So here, I would suggest we do something clever, right? You can see now there are at least 2 places we have to calculate the average score. One is over here. The other one is actually over here. right? So one way to do it is I simply just recalculate. One way to do it is I simply just repeat whatever I have done over here to calculate the total, and then to really calculate the average. That's one way to go, and then give you back the string value for the average. Another way to do is I can, to avoid these two duplicates of code, I can actually just use a helper method. Why don't I do that over here? To have a helper method, I can say private, let me just say string, right? It's gonna be the formatted average, right? Let's say get formatted average over here. And this one here is simply just going to use the loop, some of them, right? Let me just copy up to here. I'm gonna change, right? Just copy here, and then put it here. Okay. So I'm going to say we need a total still. Integer total is actually initially 0. Okay, and then we don't need these anymore. These counters are not part of the average calculation, so we don't need them. And then we can say return avgs. Okay, because see, that's how I create a helper method. And this now can be reused for at least once, but in this case twice. So it's really worth doing. As long as you're going to call your helper method more than once, it's definitely worth doing because you minimize the code duplicates. Let's now go back to here. So we don't need the total here anymore. We don't need it. We can use a helper method. So we don't need the total score. And then we also don't need this guy over here. So this can just be a call to the helper method. This dot get formatted average. That's what we can do. Okay. And what about the average rating over here? And now we want to do it conditionally. When the number of ratings is actually simply 0, that should be NA. If it's strictly larger than 0, it's going to be something, the average score that we can calculate, right? So we're going to do this conditionally. So let's say string s, like that. So we're going to say if this dot nor is equal to 0, that in that case we're going to say string is assigned to what we returned earlier. It's going to be NA. Let me put it this way. Let me just be more informative. Let's say average string. Okay, and the two of them is going to be very similar. Let me also put average s over here. Okay, and then I'm just going to replace this by $s over here. Okay, we're always going to return this particular string that formats over here only a single return. However, what this string is going to be replaced by average s. What should that be? When this .nor is actually equal to 0, that one is going to be NA, right? So average s is going to be NA. That's what we did earlier. Otherwise, it's going to be the value that we got to calculate properly, which can be gained from calling our helper method, which we just did, right? It's going to be, you can even put this just to emphasize this in the current class, like that. Okay, let's see if we got any luck. Let's go back to starter tests over here. Let's now run it. All right, we got a green bar. Okay, so now we have passed 5 test cases already. Right, so now we're about halfway to go. We got 2 more classes to come. And the next one, let's now do the App Store class. Let's uncomment the next test. Let's now go from here up to down to over here. That's for test App Store 01, right? Command or control / so uncomment that. And you can see here, since we're now in the context of declaring a variable type, so App Store should be a class that's missing from the model package. We should do that. And also this will be some overloaded constructor which will take string like the App Store branch, and also the maximum number of apps allowed to be available, right? That's kind of the what you can infer from the comments. Okay, let's now try to do that. Let me now go to the model package, and then let me now say new, and then class App Store. Just make sure it's spelled it properly, and say finish. And we also need a constructor over there, and I just need to let me just copy this part over here, just this part, right? And go back to we can close the app, right? We are done with that already. Okay, so we're gonna say public and then App Store over here. Annoyingly, it always introduce this line. Can we just get rid of it? If you really don't want it, you can just type out yourself, and then manually. Okay, it's going to be two parts. One is going to be the string. Let me call that branch. And also, this will be the maximum number of downloads allowed. Let me just double check. The maximum number of apps allowed to be available. Okay, I see. Not downloads. Beg your pardon. So let's see. Integer maximum available apps. Okay, so that's what it is it is supposed to mean. And of course, you can kind of see what the attribute we should really declare, but we'll do that later. We try to be guided by the test cases. Okay, let me maximize it. Let's go back to starter tests over here. We don't have them just because we haven't really got an import statement yet. So move your cursor to the end of the App Store and then Control space. You will see we want to import the App Store from the model package. If you do that, you can see these two errors disappear, because if you go all the way to the beginning, we actually got App Store imported automatically, right? Let's now go back to that test. Here, App Store 01. Okay, so what we got two more methods. You can see both of them, they have the same context object store. Store is of type App Store. So that means both methods should really go to the App Store class, right? That's something I keep emphasizing. And we should get one of them is called getBranch. The other one is called getApp. Okay, let's go get both of them. GetBranch is an accessor method that should return a string. And also getApp, which will take a string value that seems to be the name of the app, which should return the app value, right? So we got getBranch and getApp. Let's now do that. Okay. So now for getBranch, so I can say public. You know what? Let me just show you more explicitly what I really meant to do. GetBranch over here, that should return a string. Public string paste getBranch, and then just return null over here. Okay, just default value, just to make the compiler happy. And what about getApp? Copy this part here, copy the usage, and we generalize its definition. Also, should go to the app class. So public, and that one returns. Let me remind you, returns an app over here. So let me put app over here, getApp, and should return null. However, this part here is only an example argument value. We should generalize it into a parameter type declaration. So good notes 5 is a string literal, so that should be a string value we're expecting, and that should be the name of app, like that. Okay. The parameter name can be any name you like. So I'm just choosing the one I think that's informative for you to look at. Let's go back there. And we still got compilation error. Get staple apps over here. And you can also read over the explanation, right? I'm going to assume that you know it. So I'm going to show you the solution, my solution quickly. So get stable apps is going to take some integer. I'm going to copy this part. It's going to return a string array, like the names of the apps, basically. Okay, let me put it here, and then I'm going to say public string array get stable apps integer. So this will be like the number of updates, basically, right? It's going to be larger than or equal to. Let's see, contains. Oh, so it should be strictly more than 2 updates. Let's remember that it's going to be strictly more than the specified number. Okay, number of updates. Number of updates. Okay, initially going to say return null. Okay, so to be stable, it should be strictly more than this number. Okay, we'll assume this number to be valid. It cannot be negative. Okay. Okay, let me. You can see there's no red cross anymore. So now we're okay with the starter tests. So let's now run the JUnit test. Okay, so now you can see everything earlier has still be passing. That's good. So that's regression testing. And if I click on the latest one we are working at, double click on that. So this is the one that's failing. This one is easy to fix, right? Make sure you set a branch and also return the branch properly. Go to App Store. We have been doing this many times. So let's say private string the branch of the store. This branch is assigned to branch, and then make sure you return the branch, right? Makes complete sense. And then I'm gonna rerun the tests for regression testing, and then double click. You can see we pass everything until over here, right? the get app at the moment is simply just returning now, but which is what we are returning, but it's not exactly right, our implementation. We'll fix that in the next test. But for this one here, it's actually going to be, let me just do it again, sorry. Rerun the tests and then double click. We are failing the last one, right? You can see at the moment for the get stable apps, we're just returning now over here. But we are what the test case is telling you is they're expecting some array whose length is equal to 0, meaning that the array cannot be null. Otherwise, you get null pointer exception, right? Why don't we just do what we did before, just to begin with? Why don't we just return some empty array? So new string array with initialize 0. This will make the test happy just for now. Not a perfect solution, but at least that will do just for now. Okay, let me maximize it. And then go back to starter tests and then run. Okay, we got green bar, right? Let's now move on to the next test, which will tell us more about what can be, what should be expected to be done for the App Store class. Let's now uncomment this. Okay, only up to here. Okay, command or control and then / right? That's what you got to do. Let's see here. Is there any more method that we got to add? Okay, here, add app. Again, you can see this is almost like a trigger. As soon as I see this idea here, I got a list of apps in the App Store, and then I can add an app into it. I can get an app. So again, that's a programming pattern I need to instantiate, right? So let's do the add app and also do all the corresponding auxiliary counter, the array, and the initialization and the add app accordingly, right? It's already a second nature to me. I hope that will become second nature to you very soon. Okay. App Store. Okay, so let me put that method first of all. So that's going to be public void. You can see that method there stands alone over here, right? Stands alone. So that should be a mutator method returning void. Add app. What does it take? It takes basically, for example, app 1, app 2, or app 3. App 1, for example, was declared to be of type app. App 2, similarly, was also declared to be of type app. So they should be taking an app object reference to be more precise. So that's why I will put app over here. Right? It's really important for you to know why I could figure out that this should be app. Right? I already explained that. You can rewatch the video if you need it. Okay. Let's see how we can do it. Let's now instantiate the programming pattern for the list of apps. Private is going to be app over here, and then I'm going to put the app, and then let's say apps over here, the array, and then private, let's say integer number of apps over here, right? Number of apps over here, and then what's the maximum? Well, it's actually specified by the parameter for the constructor, so we don't need to declare the constant. What we got to do is we'll simply say this dot apps is initialized to be a new array of type app, as we can see here, and then what should be its size? It should be as indicated by the parameter. Okay, and then this dot number of apps will be explicitly 0. That's good. What about add app over here? That would be pretty much like add entry, add products, etc. What we have done, or add point. This dot apps, add position this dot number of apps over here is assigned to app. This dot NOA should be incremented like that. Okay. And let's go back. You can see no red cross anymore for this tab for the starter tests. So far we're okay. We have declared all the methods we need. But there might be some implementation that we gotta fix, I'm pretty sure. Okay, let's rerun the tests for regression testing. You can see here we're still failing. Okay, that's okay. Double click. So the line that we gotta fix is this line here about get app. Get app, we can fix that very quickly. This is very similar to the get products for your review tutorial series. Okay, I'll mention that, get app. So get app is over here, currently just returning now, which is not right. Okay. So you can also see get products and string product name in review series part 2. Okay, I'll leave that to you. And what should we do over here? Oh, let me fix a typo over here. What this will do is we're going to go over the array of apps and then try to see which one has its name matching the argument, the parameter over here, and then we're going to return that one. Very similar to what we did before, right? Let's program that right away. So app is going to be the result. I'm going to return. Result is assigned to. I think this one is very similar to something we did just earlier. Let me just draw the connection to you. I think in the app, remember we got over here, get version info. It's going to be very similar to this one. Okay, you can see I gave you the same reference over here, right? I'll just tell you again. Let's go back to App Store, right? Again, so hopefully you really don't need to, well, of course, you're welcome to watch my recording still to continue with me. But if you really can do it by yourself, you feel free to skip just this part. I'll be happy if you skip just because you know how to do it by yourself, right? I'm equally happy. So let's see, also see get version info in the app. Okay, so these two are where you can get reference from. Okay, so what I would do is, if you don't mind, I can, to really show you that they're really the same method in some way. So I can simply go to the app over here, and then I can see over here, get version info over here. Okay, I'll just copy that, and App Store over here. So the result is going to be of type app, right, rather than log. And we still got this Boolean variable to help us. So now the counter should be, rather than number of updates, should be number of apps over here. And then each iteration we are looking at some app objects. Let's say app. And then over here, this dot apps, right? And then app dot get version. Not really get version. So here we want to check the name of the app dot get name. And then dot equals name of app over here, right? That's the arguments that we can put over here. And if they match, the result should be the app. And then I'm going to set the found match to be true, which will cause me to exit from the loop over here and return the result, right? So the reason I'm doing this copy and paste rather than building from scratch is to show you it's really the same logic, right? Let's now go back to start the tests and then rerun the test for regression testing. Double click. You can see now we pass the get app already, right? Awesome. What about get stable apps? So this one here is going to be very similar to the get points in Trojan 1. And also in your review, part 2 review tutorial series, I'm pretty sure I did one of them. It's about get like a space gray or pro, right? So there are two things you can look into. Let me program that as well. Just remember that here stable means it should be larger than or equal to. Okay, sorry. What I said before was strictly larger than. It should be larger than or equal to. Okay. Let's now go back to App Store and do that method. Okay. Let me just go to get stable apps, right? So here there are two things you can look at. See, okay. So get points in Trojan 1 in written notes, and also see another one. I think it's called get space gray or pro in review series part 2. You can look at both. Okay, and let's see how we can program that. What I will do is I'm going to say, first of all, I'm going to have a string array over here, and then let's now see, we just want to get stable apps, right? Let me just say apps for now. And then it's I can say stable apps. And then what will be the maximum size that's possible? Well, just corresponding to this dot NOA, right? New app, string this dot number of apps, right? I'm not gonna really visualize to you. I did this actually in the review series part 2. So please take a look on the visualization if you really don't get what I'm trying to say here, right? You really want to do it by yourself. Don't expect you can just copy and paste in your lab, future lab, or maybe in your programming test, because I might tweak the problem a little bit. So if you just copy and paste, it's not going to lead you very far. So please take a look at the visualization in the review part 2 for this method here if you really find the need to understand the rationale, or speak to me, all right? All right, so let's now just give a little bit more space all the way to the top. Okay, good. So what I will do is I'm going to say for integer I, 0, I strictly less than this dot NOA, right? You can see this dot NOA actually correspond to this.NOA. The maximum number of apps that can be stable will be this.NOA. Cannot be more, right? Because remember, the first purpose for the counter is actually corresponding to how many non-null apps that have been stored into the array. I++. We also need some auxiliary counter. Okay, integer count is equal to 0 over here, and we're going to say if we can also got our Boolean variable here. Have we? Actually, we don't. No, we don't need a Boolean. Beg your pardon. We're not really defining anything. Okay, so we're just gonna say if the current app, we can say app. You can declare the local variable if you wish, but I don't necessarily have to. But let me just declare that app will be this apps over here at index I. If app.get stable apps, right? Get number of updates. Okay, do we have update history, right? Update history tell you actually how many. Let me just see update history. Let me remind myself to see what's get update history. If I go back to app over here, so is there anything I can reuse? Get update history. Yeah, that's good. It's gonna be an array of log, so that will tell me how many updates there are in the app. That's good. Okay, I want to make sure. Dot length, right? The length of the updates, if that's larger than or equal to 2, right? Again, that's actually based on the description over here, larger than or equal to, right? The number of updates that's being stored. That's a larger than equal to 2. I'm sorry, not 2. It should be corresponding to this number over here. Okay, and then if that's the case, then this particular app should be collected in the stable apps array. Okay, so what I will do is I'm going to say stable apps at position count, right, is assigned to app dot is assigned to app over here, and then count plus plus, right? To really visualize this, again, I will encourage you, if you're really not clear, refer to the part 2 video for this. I've traced that, explained the rationale there thoroughly, right? So it may not be worth your time to repeat it, but you really got to look at that if you have any trouble. Oh, one more thing to say. You can see here, I got some compilation error. Type mismatch cannot convert from app into string. App over here is actually a string. App here is the app objects, but the array is going to be an array of strings, so only the names of the app. So that's why I got to say app.get name. Okay, it's some indirection over here. I know I still haven't got any return statement. I'm going to get to that in just a moment. So this stable apps over here is actually going to be this NOA. However, the actual number of stable apps might be strictly less than the number of stable apps might be strictly smaller than this.NOA, in which case the array that we return over here might contain some null slots. That's why we're going to be precise. So what we do is we're going to need a second local array. So we're going to say string. So let's say stable apps. Okay, let's say precise. How about that? Is going to be new string array. What should we put over here? Exactly this count over here, because it's being used to keep track of every stable app that we add into the stable apps array. Okay, and now we're just going to actually eventually we want to return this particular stable apps precise. That's what we're going to return eventually, but let's now massage that, right? How do we do that? Well, it's still going to use a loop. Integer I is assigned to 0. I is strictly less than the count, right? Count tells us how many stable apps there are, precisely. And then I plus plus. So stable apps precise. Stable apps precise at position I is assigned to, and then stable apps at position I. Right? That's what we're gonna do. Right? This corresponds to very, very closely to these two methods, right? Again, I'm just repeating that just for you to walk over very quickly, but you should also refer to the video if you, especially this one, if you got any trouble. Okay, let's now go back to see if we got it correct. Now, if I run the tests, we got a red bar, but let's see why. If I go here, you can see what we have is we got store.getStableApps over here. let's see. So we got, apparently it is actually 2. That's actually okay. So are we missing anything here? Why don't I just put a breakpoint and see what happened? Okay. If I put a breakpoint over here, you know what? Another way to do. Let me just say run, and then let's see the failure over here. Apparently, I'm only getting good notes 5. I'm only getting that, but rather I should really get this entire string about the 3 versions and etc. Right? That's what I should get. Let's see why. Okay, I think we're getting very close. Store the get stable apps. Aha, I see. So basically, let's try to read this, right? Store the get stable apps over here, 2. That's going to return an array of string. And then we are saying that the first string should be this entire string over here, right? What's that string? It looks to me, well, hopefully to you as well. It's going to be not just the name of the app, but also its information over here, right? Remember when we declare for the app to string method, that was actually something that we spent some time on. That will actually tell. Let me see if there's anything. They will tell us something like about how many versions there are, and also current version, and also contains 1 fixes, etc. So let's see if this one is something that will take us more time. Let's see. Let me just go back to the app over here. Okay. So the app is not going to be something we can simply reuse. Let's give it a try. If not, then we're going to do something different. Okay, let's do it together. I'm not looking at the solution myself. I just want to redo it together with you. But so far, what we have developed is not useless, right? It's definitely useful. Okay, so let me just go back to the App Store over here. So now, rather than having, you can see, I just want to show to you. So here, this is the string over here, right? And then we want to make sure this one here, rather than get name, what if we simply say dot get, let's say app.toString. What about that? Let's see if that might help. Okay. You can see I'm just changing every element in the string array rather than just the name of the app. It could be the entire information, the complete information about the app. Not too sure if this will work. If not, we'll work out something else. Okay. Okay, start the tests over here and then run it. Okay, red bar, that's fine. Let's take a look. Still failing this line. Let's see exactly how. Okay, run it. And then let's now see this. Okay, apparently you can see this part here, the actual return value is the toString call on the app. But that one is not really corresponding to this. It seems like we need something better. Okay, that's something we need. Okay, can I simply just copy this information over here, right? And let me just see. We are getting somehow very close, but not exactly. Okay, so why don't we just I already copied that string. You should do the same. Let me go back to the App Store, and then let me just go back to over here. Okay, so somehow this string over here, this expression here is not exactly correct, right? Let me just put it here. Okay, so what we expect to see over here is about how many versions, and also what's the current version, and contain how many fixes, right? That's something we need. Okay, so what should I do over here? Well, I would suggest we do some string.format. Since we know the example output over here, we got to work out exactly which part might come from some attribute or method call. That's basically what we got to do. Okay, so why don't I say this? String.formats over here. Okay, so let me just copy this one. Cut is okay. Okay, and then I'm just going to just put a string over here, put it, and then like that. You know what? Let me just put even the new line over here, and then put it here. Okay, so how many versions should we get? How many versions should be over here? How many versions for the app? Well, that one we can simply get a number of versions, which will be basically the size of the update history, right? So this should be $D. Okay, so this is something I can say here. I can say app.get update history, and then dot length. That's what I can put. Okay, and what is the current version? Aha, current version is a very good hint. Current version tells me that it should be something to do with what is new, right? Remember what I explained about what is new over here. Okay, get what is new. That may be something we can reuse, right? Why don't we try? and get what is new. And then I'm just going to go back to my app store over here and current version. So this will be the version, right? Okay, why do I say $S? Let me give it a try to see if this might work. App.get what is new over here. Right, hopefully you can still following my logic here, right? I tried to develop from scratch, and then I thought it should be just in the beginning, I thought it should be the name of the app, but it didn't work out. And I tried the toString on the app. Also, it turns out to be not exactly the information. That's why I'm just keep trying, right? Based on the test. Test is the precise documentation I can rely on. That's my point. All right, if I say run the tests, we still got a red bar. Let's see where we're failing. Okay, we're still failing this line, but let's see exactly where. Okay, double click on that. Oh, I see. We are getting there. Actually, we're getting this part over here, I believe, right? We're getting this part, but we're missing the name of the app. Okay, well, we can get it, of course. Okay, you can see this part here is really good. Okay, but we're just mixing the name of the app, which we did have initially. What? Why do we do that? Okay, let me go back to the App Store over here. Let me just double check one thing. Okay, again, let me see here. What should it look like? It should be. Oh, you know what? Let me just copy this again. Okay, copy the expected string and go back to App Store, and then let me just put it here just to remind all of us. Right? You can see we are basically covering whatever that's within the round parenthesis, right? So now so that should be surrounded by the round parenthesis, and before that it should be the name of the app over here. So you can see in this case using a string.format is very convenient rather than concatenation. But if you really prefer concatenation, feel free. So I can say app.getName. Oh, sorry, somehow let me undo it. Command or Control Z to undo it. So here I can say app.getName. App.getUpdateHistory.length, right? Okay, good. That's what we have. Let's now try one more time. You can see there's test-driven development. Keep trying. But you want to try with a direction. You should be informed with reasoning, right? All right. Finally, we got a green bar. All right, good. If you got any trouble with understanding the logic, maybe I'm going a little bit too fast, but you can definitely rewatch the video. That's why I'm making this video right now. All right, we passed 7 tests over here, and then the next one will be the last class to deal with, which will be the account class. Okay, so let's now deal with the last class. Let's uncomment the next test. Let's go from here until, let's say, over here. Okay, Command or Control / So the test we want to deal with is about the account, test account 01. Okay, we don't have, you can see all these methods here are depending on what we have developed so far in the earlier tests, so they're okay. Let's see what new method we need. Well, you can see here we're now having an error in the context of variable declaration. So that means we want to add one more class into the model package, the 4th class we are adding. And then we should have this constructor over here overloaded that should have this value Suyang and also Canadian store, right? You can see here Suyang over here is a string value. Canadian store is referring to the Canadian store that's declared over here on the top. So that should be of type App Store. Okay, that's something you should really know how to reason about. Okay, let's now try to do that. Let's now go back to Package Explorer, right click on the model and create a new class over here called account. Over here, and then we should have a constructor over there. So public and then account, like that. Okay, so this time if you only copy the values from the overloaded constructor, they wouldn't introduce this import the JUnits package line that we need to delete. Okay, anyway, so this Suyang over here is a string. Let's generalize it into a string parameter. Apparently that's the name of the account owner, and this will be rather than a string. Again, you can see the Canadian store over here is really referring to the Canadian store at the top, which is App Store. So let me go back. So that should be App Store. So each account should be associated with, should be registered with some App Store. Okay, App Store. Okay, we'll worry about the attributes later, as usual. Okay, let's go back to the tests. Okay, let's see what else we have errors about. Oh, of course, we gotta import it. Okay, move your cursor to the end of the class, account, control space, and choose account for the model package. Okay, so this line we are okay, right? Let's see, we got other errors as well. We got the names of downloaded apps. We also got get objects of downloaded apps, right? They're both accessors. Where should they belong to? They should belong to the type of the context object ACC1, which was declared as account class. So both of these accessors should really go to the account class. What should be their return type? Get names of downloaded apps, returns an array of string over here. Get objects of downloaded apps, returns an array of app over here. Okay, good. Let's now declare these two. Get names of downloaded apps, right? Let me just copy its name so I don't get a chance to really misspell the words. So let me go back to the account. Let me close the app store. We are done with them already, aren't we? Okay, so now we're gonna say public and then and now void. Actually, this one is going to be a string array, as I explained before. Get names of downloaded apps, right? Let me just return null for now, just for compilation. And then the second one will be get objects of downloaded apps. Let me copy the name. It's going to return an array of app. Let me go back to the account and public app as a return type, app array. Get objects of downloaded apps and then return null. So the difference really is conceptually. This one here is going to return the names of all the downloaded apps for the account. This one is going to return the corresponding app objects for the account, right? And those app objects should really come from the link store, the store that the account is registered in. So remember the remarks I just did about the difference between these two methods. I also clarified that in the e-class announcement earlier. So that's something you should also refer to. Otherwise, you wouldn't know why I'm doing this way. Okay. Let's go back to the starter test. It seems like we've still got some methods undefined. Let's see what they are. So we got submit rating over here. So submit rating is actually we also got submit rating at the level of some the app class, right? Now we got submit rating also at the account class. How do we know? How do I know? You can see the context object for this method is ACC1. ACC1 again was declared to be account. So that means that method should also be defined in the account class, right? Submit ratings stands by itself, and that one takes the name of the app, which means we're gonna search through all the apps in this in the app store in the account. Sorry, we're going to search through all the downloaded apps in the account and see which one got this name, and then submit this particular score for that particular app for the account. Okay, let's see. Submit rating. Let's now see. Let's which will take these two arguments. Let me go back to the account. Okay, so that should be a mutator. So let me put a mutator over here. Public void submit rating, right? So this one should be the name of the app. So generalize it into a string parameter, name of app, and this will be the integer score for the rating, right? That's what we have, right? Let's go back there, and we got one more, which is about how we can switch the store, right? You can see the arguments over here is a new object of type app store, so that should really take app store, okay? And where should this method go? It should go to the type of the context object ACC1, which is account. All right, let's now copy this, and then we'll generalize it when we get there. Okay, sorry. Let me go back to account. And then it's going to be public void switch the store, and that should be app store, right? This is just one example, anonymous objects, UK store, but it should be general where you define the method, app store. You can say store, that's okay. Okay, like that. All right, let's go back here. Do we still have any compilation error? We do. Oh, I didn't see this. I beg your pardon. Okay, this was uninstall, right? It also is invoked on the ACC1 context objects of type account. So uninstall is a mutated method that should be taking the name of the app, right? Let's copy that. I just missed that. Let's go back to account, and then we're going to say public and then void uninstall. So this should be generalized into a string parameter name of app. String name of app. Okay, good. All right, so you can see now we have no compilation error, but if I rerun the test for regression testing, I'm pretty sure I will fail because I haven't implemented anything yet. Let's now run the tests over here. So now you can see everything we developed so far is still passing. There's no concern. But this one here, we should really do better. Double click on that. The one I'm failing is about the status over here, right? The status actually comes from the toString method, right? So exactly how you do it is kind of up to you how you can return the status. But a very common way to do it is to declare the status as a string attributes, and then you want to update the attributes whenever necessary. Okay, and in this case, we are calling the toString right after the constructor. So that means at the end of the constructor, we should really update the status into something like this, right? Let me copy the string over here. You can copy that as well. And then we'll just go to account, okay? So what I will do, what I will start from is I can say private string status over here. And then I can also make sure at the end of the constructor, whatever I do, at the end, I'm gonna set the status. This status is assigned to something like this. Okay. However, you can see the it's not exactly this, right? And account linked to the whatever store. So this seems to be corresponding to the app store over here, the name of the app store, right? And also created for Suyang, which is not a constant. It should be corresponding to the name. Okay. So why don't I try to do string.formats, right? String.formats over here, right? So this will be what I need to print out eventually, something like that. And then I'm going to, okay, let me just see this. String.formats, and then this part here, an account linked to the Canada store. So that should be $S. Wait, what should that be? That should be appstore.get branch. Okay, the branch of the store. And then also we got created for Suyang. Suyang here is just one example. So that should be $S, and that should be the name. So here I'm just using the parameter over here. You can see App Store is referring to the App Store here. Name is referring to the name here. At some point later, I'm also going to assign these two parameter values into attributes. So here I can also say, for example, later, this dot, especially here, I can say this dot name. But for now, it's okay. Okay. Okay, very nice. So that's about the status. After at the end of the constructor, we might need to update the status in later method as well. But we'll get there when it's required by the tests. Okay. And at the end, it's very important, since now we got this particular status string attributes, we should make sure we print it out in the toString method. So I'm going to say public string toString over here, and then return this dot status. Right? You can see the toString method itself is very easy. Just return the status value. However, you want to make sure you declare the attributes and also update it whenever necessary. We haven't finished that yet, but we'll get there. Let's go back to start the tests, rerun the test for regression testing, and you can see we passed this one already, right? So now we're here. So the names of downloaded apps initially should be 0. Again, there should be empty array. Why don't we create empty array just to begin with? And similarly for get objects of downloaded apps, just for this test initially. So why don't I just go to over here, rather than null, I'm going to say new string array 0. And over here, I'm going to say new app array of size 0. Right? We'll fix that in the later test. For now, we are okay. Okay, let's now rerun the test for regression testing. Double click. Right? You can see we passed those two. Right? So now we are in this one here. Uninstall is going to be the method that will be required to be implemented in the last test. So we don't need to worry about it for now. As long as we get its header or signature right, we are fine. So now we are failing this one here, right? So the status, since like after uninstall, we're actually going to make sure error, the GoodNotes file has not been downloaded for Suyang, right? That's something we have to do, right? But for now, because initially the store is simply just empty. The account is simply just empty. There's no downloaded apps. So we can simply just print out this message over here. Well, I'll make a notes. Copy this, and then let's go back to the account. And then we'll go to uninstall over here. The idea will be check to see if name of app is the name of a downloaded app. How do you check it? You gotta go through the array by using a for loop. If non-existing, do nothing. If existing, remove the app. Okay, we'll get there once we get to the test. I just want to document the thoughts for you. Okay, but we're gonna say initially, when an account is first created, no apps have been downloaded. So therefore, okay, initially. So therefore, nothing can be uninstalled. You haven't installed anything, of course you cannot uninstall anything. Okay, so that's why here I'll just say this dot status, and then it says reassigned to this particular message over here. But see here, this should be the name of the app, right? Over here, and this should be the name of the account. And here we do need the attribute here. Actually, I'm forced to actually do it now. So let me just write it down. So this will be string formats over here, and then this is the string, and then let's see here. Okay, so error. So this should be replaced by the name of app, right? Name of app over here. That's the name of app. Has not been downloaded for Suyang. Suyang is the particular string in that example, but it should be more generally the name of the attribute. So it should be this name. But I have not declared this attribute just yet. I'm gonna do it now. So what I will do is I'm gonna say private string, the name of the accounts, and then I gotta make sure I also say this name is assigned to name. After I have done this, here I can either say name or this name. They are equal. They're the same. Okay. All right. This name over here, and of course I gotta put the closing run parenthesis over here. Good. Let's now go back to started tests and rerun it. Double click. Okay. Now we are moving, right? So now this will be after submit the rating, right? So now after submit the rating, initially there's no downloaded apps for the account, so you cannot submit a rating for any app basically. But or you can think about this app simply does not exist, so that's why you cannot submit it. Okay, so what we can do is we gotta also update the status. So let me now copy the string value here. Let's go back to the account. Let's go to the submit rating over here. Initially, it's just going to be this status. Okay, it's just reassigned to just for here. Okay, just paste this. So the error. Okay, again we're gonna do string formats, right? We're gonna say error, and then okay, comma. Put a comma here. Okay, let me just put here and closing parenthesis. Okay, so the GoodNotes 5 is going to be replaced by the name of app. So $s name of app. Good. It's not a downloaded app for Suyang. That should be the name of the account. So this should be $sign. Oh, I kept saying $sign, right? It should be percentage. I beg your pardon. It should be percentage S. Okay. When I said dollar in the earlier part of the video, I really meant percentage. Okay. So that should be this name. Okay, and okay, that's good. Go back here and run it again. Okay, we're still failing. Maybe it's a later test. Okay, final one, right? Also, if we want to switch the store, right? That's also very important. If you want to switch the store, that means you want to change the some internal reference. Basically, if you infer from the comments, you can read through the comments and also the problem description in the PDF, right? You can see that if I switch the store, that means I'm changing some internal reference for the because every account can only be registered with one single store. In the beginning, when we first created the account, you can see it's a Canadian store. So that's why it would say link to the Canada store. But now if we do a different store, we're going to change that internal reference. That's what we should do. Okay. So I would suggest we go to, let me just copy this message over here. Let's now go back to the class over here. I'm going to introduce a new attributes. So private, and then it should be app store, right? And then store. That's the store that's registered by the owner. Each owner can only be registered with one store. That's actually set in your comments or problem description in the PDF. Okay, so now what we should do is after not only that we're gonna initialize the name, but we're also gonna initialize the store. This store is actually assigned to app store. So now as soon as I say that, here I can also replace this by this.store.getBranch. Okay, you can also do that. And what we need to do is in the switch store. Okay, so this.store is assigned to store. And we should also update the status. It's assigned to, again, we can do string.formats over here. And let's now paste it, right? And then let's now, oh, okay, let me just hit enter over here. Okay, account for Suyang, again, that should be replaced by this.name, right? This.name is now linked to the UK store. UK is just the branch name for the app store, $S. So this.store.get branch, right? All right, so again, back in the review tutorial series part 2, I talk about how you can understand the dot notation, right? If you really got trouble understanding it, you should review the review tutorial. Okay, otherwise reach out to me. Let's now go back to start the test. You can see we have done quite a bit, but not completely. We are only guided by what's really required by the test cases so far. If I rerun the test case, now we got a green bar. Awesome. Okay, let's now go to the second test over here. Okay, let's now uncomment test account number 2 over here. Okay, let me all the way to here. Command or control /, right? Have we missed any method here? Indeed, you can see the red cross over here, right? Let's now scroll down a little bit. Well, you can see download. Again, download, abstractly speaking, is related to the concept of adding something to the collection. So we just need to instantiate the programming pattern as before. And you can see whenever we want to download, we are actually downloading some app with its name. Okay, and then download is the only one that we have to worry about. Okay. But I can tell you that for download, I think for download, that's okay. Why don't we just do the download? Here, how do we do that? I think to start with, why don't we simply have an array of app names? Because every time when we want to download some apps, we want to supply its name, right? Why don't we start by doing that? And where should this download method go? It's context object ACC1 of type account, so that should go to the account class. Okay, so that's a new method. Why don't I put it here? Public void download. Okay, that should be the name of the app, right? So string name of app. I will explain the extension that we need later when we need it. So how do we instantiate the pattern? Well, it's every time we're going to add a string into the array, so we just need a string array. So private, let's say string over here, string array over here. So rather than saying there's apps, we better be careful. Names of how about just say names of apps over here? That should be quite obvious what we meant, right? Names of apps. What you can, if you want, you can download it. Apps over here and integer counter. Number of apps or number of downloaded apps is up to you. How about NOA? Number of downloads over here. Good. Is this clashing with private integer? Okay, good. Okay, and then what? How should we update? Well, as we did before, it should be easy. This dot names of downloaded apps over here at position this dot NOA, right, is assigned to name of app. Right, very standard, right? You can see this argument here is assigned to the relevant position indicated by this.NOA, the counter for this particular array, right? Of course, if you got more than one arrays, in that case, you want to make sure you choose the right counter, as we did before in an earlier class. This.NOA++, right? That's what we should do. And then let's now try to go back to start the tests, right? So at least we got a method, so there's no compilation error, okay? If we run the test again, failing, not surprising, double click, you can see we need, let's go one by one. What about get name? Actually, let me just do it again. If I say run the tests and then double click, okay, we are failing this line over here, but exactly how? Run again. We got some null pointer exception. I see why. Okay, I think this might be worth our attention quickly. I didn't plan this, but it's good to illustrate quickly. Double click on this. If I launch the debugger and switch, okay, let's see why we got a null pointer exception. If you step into it over here and then get name, that's okay. We don't need it, so we can stay step return. And then we want to see exactly how the download method is going to be executed. So step into once more. And then you can see here, if we got null pointer exception, it can be only two possible sources of problem. Either we have a method call or we have array indexing. Here we got array indexing. So I suspect this particular array is actually null. Indeed, it is null. So that's why we cannot index into it. So that's why we got null pointer exception, right? If I say step over, we got null pointer exception. Okay. Let me now stop this. Hopefully you're following me. I think it's worth showing to you. So what's happening here, let me close this, is we forgot to actually initialize this array in the constructor, which you should remember. It's very easy to forget. Okay, let me now, maybe after the store, let me initialize the array. This dot names of downloaded apps is initialized to be this dot, new, and then string array. How many apps can we get, right? We may want to refer to the PDF instruction. Okay, so you can see each account, the maximum number of downloads allowed for an account is always 50, right? So that's a magic number, so it should be 50. Okay, good. Let's now just put 50 over here. And then this .NOA explicitly initialized to be 0. Okay, so now we can avoid a null pointer exception. Let's go back to starter tests over here and then run. Okay, let's now double click. Okay, so now download is okay. We bypassed that error. But now we are actually failing for this toString method, right? So it seems like after the download, we should also change the status for the person, right? Okay, so why don't we copy this, right? So let's go to download. Let's go to download over here. So at the end of this method here, we should really say this status, pretty much similar to how we did it for earlier method, right? After at the end, we should also say this status is reassigned to some string. String formats over here. Let's now paste that string and enter. Oh, sorry. Let's now enter from here. Okay, so this one apparently is the name of the app, right? Name of app over here, the first one, is successfully downloaded for Suyang, the name of the account. So $S. So that should be replaced by this name, right? Okay. At the end of the method, just to make it clear, you update the status message at the end of every mutator method, basically. Go back to starter tests and then launch. Double click. Okay, now we get all the way to over here, right? So now get names of downloaded apps and also get objects of downloaded apps, right? Both of them should be 3. So that's something I would like to do over here, right? Get names of downloaded app. That was easy. Just retrieve it from the array, from the string array. But this one will require a little bit indirection because we're gonna return the corresponding app objects that actually exist in the link store. Okay, that's something we would like to do. Let me illustrate very quickly. Okay, let me sketch very briefly. Okay, you can think about if this actually is some account ACC1. Okay, so this is the account objects. So we actually got, let's say, conceptually we got 2 attributes. But they are not really going to be implemented by attributes, but both of them. One of them will not be, but I mean conceptually, let me sketch that way. So let's say name of downloaded apps, objects of downloaded apps. Okay, so this one here is going to be an array of string. Okay, it's going to be a string array. Right, the size doesn't matter. Okay. And another one is actually going to be what type? Let me just show to you. And if you actually go to that particular accessor method, let's just go back there so I can sketch together with you. So you can see get objects of downloaded apps is going to be an array of app, right? So this array is going to be app array, the same size. Okay, so now how do we sketch this, right? At the same time, there should be another attributes for this. Okay, let me use purple, and for this account over here. Oh, doesn't look good, does it? And then, so this would be the store. So the store is actually going to refer to some UK store or Canada store, right? Let's say at the moment it's going to be this particular app store, right? So this is the app store, right? App store over here, and then for the app store, you can definitely refer to the develop class to see what attributes it has. Specifically, they should be the apps. That's really important, right? So these are all the apps available in the particular store, okay? And also the number of apps and etc., right? Some number over here, okay? Let's say for now, the apps is really pointing to an array of all the available apps over here. Okay, over here 0, 1, 2, 3, and etc. 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. Let me just sketch some array over here, some objects. For example, one app could be over here is pointing to the app. Okay, maybe this one is maybe notability. Okay, another one, let me just put 2 just for example, and then you'll see what I mean. And the next one will be, let's say, also app over here. Let's say that one is Good Notes 5. Okay, the name, right? Let's say this. For example, when this particular account, let's say for Xian, when she wanted to download, let's say for the first app that she's going to download is going to be Good Notes 5, right? So this one is going to be a string value, Good Notes 5. What about at the same position for app over here? And for here, for the objects of downloaded apps, is going to take a look at in the corresponding position, what is the name of the downloaded apps? And then it's going to search through the link store over here to find out the corresponding objects. In this case, it's going to be at index 1, Good Notes, because you can see Good Notes is matching Good Notes over there. Good Notes is matching the Good Notes 5 over here, right? So that means over here, it should be pointing to this particular Good Notes objects. All right, so that's very important. Let me write down for this particular one. It's really important for you to see this. You can see the store EECS2030 dot store dot apps. Of course, they are actually simply private, but conceptually, you can think about the way for you to get to attributes by using dot notation, which we spoke about. The apps, and then at position 1, this object here is equals the reference equal, right? EECS1, actually, you know what? Let me say it again. Say it slightly better. So this one here, dot get name. I will try to visualize further in just a moment. Get name dot equals and EECS1 dot names of downloaded apps, right? I'm talking about this particular array over here at position 0. Let's now understand what I'm trying to write here. Start with this. EECS1 dot number EECS1 dot names of downloaded apps at position 0. EECS1 at number of downloaded apps, which refer to this array, and then at index 0 is referring to this particular string. So far, so good, right? This particular string. That's good. What about the other side? The other side is like this. EECS1.store. Let's start with that. EECS1.store. And then dot is going to go to this store, and then go to the apps, and then pointing to the beginning of the array, go to index 1. Index 1 is referring to this particular app, and what's its name? Its name is Good Notes 5 over here, exactly over here. So we are really talking about these two strings being equal. Okay, it's really important for you to see the correspondence between these two. Okay, this and also this. That's really something I would like to sketch, even though informally, but very in some way very complete. Okay, so whenever we talk about names of downloaded apps, it's really some name over here. But when we talk about objects of downloaded apps, it should be referring to the corresponding objects in the link store over here, whose app actually got the same, whose name matches this name over here. Okay, that's something very important for you to see. Let me now go back to program these two methods properly. Let's remind ourselves where we are failing. So if I click on run and double click, you can see now we're here. So let me, even though it's not really comparing just yet, but I would like to program these two methods right away. Oh, sorry, undo. Okay, I want to program these two methods right away based on our understanding. So I want to program get name and also all these three. Okay, so if I go back to account, do I have get name already? Do I? Let's take a look. So if I do I have get name? Maybe it's here. Oh, sorry, that's app2.getName. Sorry. So we should really get to these two methods directly. Okay, let's go back to account. Okay, let's now do these two. This one should be easy. This one is very similar to something we also did earlier. Let me just show to you. Again, it's something it should be a second nature to you. I believe it should be in the log. And then we got something called get, is it log? Or maybe let me go to app. Exactly over here, get update history, right? So this is to return the array of log. That's exactly what we did before, right? Let me copy this one here just to show you they are really the same method, similar, extremely similar. Let me go back to account over here, and then I'll just paste over here, right? Let me maximize it. Let me fix the indentation. Oh, it's fixed already, right? In case it's not fixed, you can say Command or Control A. Select all of them. Command or Control I to fix the indentation. Okay. So now if I go back to account, okay, it's not fixed. Okay, Command or Control A, select everything. Command or Control I, fix the indentation. Okay. So the array we want to return is actually a string. So we want to let's say the names over here. That's what we want to return. And then we're gonna say the string array, and the counter we want to use is actually NOA, right? Number of apps. Okay. This dot NOA, and then this dot NOA, and then this will be the names array. This dot, what should be the string array name? Should be names of downloaded apps. Let me copy that. Names of downloaded apps, and then we're gonna return this names at the end. Right? That's what we get. Okay, that's the first method. What about this one here? This one is going to be very similar, except that for every, basically what we're going to do is we're going to go over this particular array to find out each name, and then we want to find out what's the corresponding objects in the app store. That's basically what we're going to do. Okay, let's see how we can do that. And for that one, do we have any helper method over here that we can use? If not, we can define one ourselves. Basically, what we need is, given the name of some app, right? We want to return its corresponding objects. That's something we did earlier, right? Let me just go to that. Let me just develop from scratch. That's okay. It's actually not difficult. Okay, let's now just do from here. Actually, I just need some helper method to help me. So let's say private over here. And then I'm going to need, let's say, app, get app, and string name of app. Given the name of app, find its corresponding app objects in the linked store. Right? That's something already visualized to you. Okay. I believe we can do a little bit of copy and paste. Let me now just go back to app. Something like this, right? Get version info. Given the name of the, given the version number, given the version string, we can return the corresponding log. Similar, right? There will be something I gotta adapt in a moment. Let me go back to the account over here. Let me just paste it over here, right? Let's now, the return value should be app. Let's say the result. And found match, the Boolean variable is the same. And now it should be number of apps over here. And then found match, right? And then every element we look at is actually a string, right? However, now we're actually we are now going to look through the list of apps in the store over here. So what we're going to do is, if I know that I actually want to find out the GoodNotes 5, the corresponding objects. So what I should do is I should really go to this store dot apps over here, and then try to go over each one of them one by one. That's what I should do. Okay. Let's see what we can, how we can do it. Okay. Let me go back to that particular method in the account over here. Right. We are now here. So here, what I need to do is I got to change it. So this store dot get. So which method can I use? Okay. So let me go back to the store class. Let me go back to App Store. And then, actually, you know what? I got this get app already, right? So I can actually call that as a helper method. That's very useful. That's because I already hinted that in the earlier test, so you can definitely use it. If I didn't do that, you can feel free to define this as a helper method for yourself as well. So I'm going to use this get app method. Let me go back here. So what I can do, I don't even need a loop, it turns out, which is very good. Okay, can I just get rid of this? Okay, why don't I simply say, okay, if I didn't have the helper method in the App Store class, then I need to create it from scratch, but I do have it, so I can just say something like return this.store.get app, name of app. That's what I can do, right? Let's say I got this helper method over here, and then how about this method here? So now I can define for every. I'm not going to go over all the names. Okay, so what I would do is I'm going to say eventually I want to return the app objects, right? App, and then apps is new app. I'm going to say this.noa. You can see this part here has the same length as the corresponding names. It's just that the element in the array is string versus app. Eventually, I'm going to return apps over here. Oops. So what I should do is I should really go over the array. Integer I will be 0, I strictly less than this.noa, I++. And for each one of them, how should I do it, right? Let's go a little bit slowly here. So what will be the name? String name of app will be assigned to this dot names of downloaded apps, right? That's my attributes at index I. That will give me the name. And how can I find out the corresponding app in the App Store? I can call this helper method, which will in turn call the get app helper method from the store, right? You can see the indirection here. That's why something you want to trace by yourself. If you got trouble, you should reach out to me. Okay. So now I can say app will be assigned. Let's say app is assigned to, let's say this dot get app, and then that'll be name of app over here, right? Once I get it, I can now assign that to apps. Okay. So apps at index I should be assigned to app. All right, that's what I should do. All right, so that's about these two methods, right? It took me quite a bit of time to really explain to you how these work, and also its connection to the earlier methods is really, I hope that's worth it for your time to actually understand exactly what's going on. Let me go back to the starter tests. Let's see what happened. If I run the tests, I still got a red bar. Let's see what happened. If I double click, I'm still actually failing this one here, get names of downloaded apps. The length is actually not equal to 3. Let's take a look. Double click, and I got some assertion error. Okay, so that's exactly this line here. Somehow the length is not equal to 3 over here. Let's now see why. Let's now put a breakpoint here. And then I'm just going to launch the debugger and see what's going on, right? And then I need to get rid of this earlier breakpoint. Okay, let me stop the debugger and let me launch the debugger once more and switch. Somehow this is not equal to this one might be okay. Let me just go back to go to expression here. Let me remove all the previous expressions. Let me remove them. Can we just do one by one? How about this one here? what's its length? This one happened to be 4 rather than 3. Okay, so why don't we try to take a look? Let me now step into it. Okay, you can see names would be this.NOA. Right? NOA is actually 4 rather than 3. Get names of downloaded apps. Okay, let's see. Am I using the wrong counter over here? NOA initially is actually 0. Okay, whenever I do download, I'm going to say this.NOA actually ++. That's actually correct. Okay, that's why it should be 4. Let me just see this. In the starter test where I try to call this one here, so EECS2030 download 1, and then 2, and then 3. Oh, I see what's going on. I think that's good. Exactly, right? Hopefully you're following me so far. What's happening is when I get to this point here, I see this.NOA happen to be 4 rather than 3, right? But now if you might run into the same trouble. Why is that actually 4 rather than 3? 3 is expected, right, over here. It is because this line here. Attempt to download an app that's already downloaded. No change and signal an error in status. That's exactly what we should do, right? Because app2 has been downloaded for EECS2030 already, so if we try to download it again, we shouldn't do it. That's the problem. Okay, let me stop here. And then, so this is our error status I need to set. Okay, very good. I think it's really good for me to develop the solution from scratch together with you, so I can really show you my thinking process. So what I should do is go back to starter tests. I want to copy this error message over here, which I will set in a moment. Okay, copy that. And let me go back to account, right? Of course, I'm assuming that you have seen these test cases already, so you got certain familiarity with it already. Let me go back to the account, and what I should do is I should go back to download. Download should be here. Okay, so now we want to program some additional logic over here. We will only try to do these 2 lines when the name of app does not exist as a name for the names of downloads. Otherwise, we should do nothing. Okay. Okay. So now what we should do is we should say we should really find out if that particular name actually exists in the array. So what we should do is let's say Boolean the name exists. Initially, let's say false. Okay. So for integer I is assigned to 0i less than this.NOA. I++. Okay, and then I'm going to check one by one. I'm going to say if the current one I'm looking at names of downloaded apps over here, right? Dot equals name of app, right? As soon as I have this, I know that name exists, should be assigned to true, right? And then I can say as soon as I'm going to stay in the loop as long as I have not found the name. So name still does not exist. As soon as I set this to be true, it's going to be negated to be false, and I'm going to exit from the loop, right? The same logic as before. Okay. Okay, so we're going to say this. If the name actually exists, that means do nothing. App already downloaded, do nothing. If it does not exist, that means we can download a new app. Okay. Okay, you know what? And download it. And also we got to set a status accordingly. So this status is assigned to string formats over here. Let me put it here. And let me just click on enter over here. Okay, what should we put? Okay. So this seems to be the name of the app, right? So $S. Oh, actually, let me undo. This is the name of the app. You can check it, right? $S. So this should be the name of app. Over here has already been downloaded for Hyun. So this apparently is the name of the account owner. So $S, this name. So that'll be the error status if the name exists, right? Otherwise, we're going to do whatever we did earlier, which is when the name does not exist. So that means we're downloading a new app. right? Hopefully you're following, right? Especially my debugging process, right? It's really important to use debugger to find out exactly what's going on if assertion failed. Let's go back to start the tests over here. And let's now run. And we got a green bar. Awesome. Okay. Let's now move on to the next one. Let's now uncomment test account number 3. Okay. This one here. Let's uncomment this over here. Do we have any methods that need to be implemented? No, actually, we already declared all the methods in the previous tests. That's why we don't see any red cross for the compilation error. That's good. Why don't we try to run the test cases right away? Awesome, we got green bar. I can tell you that it's because I tried to actually implement in the, let me close the app store right away. That's because in the account class, I try to implement all the methods in the best way possible whenever I get to it, right? Especially get objects of downloaded apps and also get names of downloaded apps. I also explained to you how they should be visualized like this, right? Since I already implemented correctly, so that's why some later methods might just pass automatically, okay? Which is okay. Awesome. So this one already passed. That means we can go over that, right? Let's now go to test account number 4, right? Let's now go all the way to its end, up to here. Command or Control /. And then I'm gonna run the test over here. And we get a green bar. Awesome, right? That means that our hard work in the earlier test actually really pay off. So now we can pass maybe some later tests automatically, which is good. What about test account number 5? Let's try. So let's now uncomment this all the way to over here, right? Command or Control /. And then I'm going to launch the test again, and we get a red bar, right? This time we're not that lucky, but let's see what we should fix, okay? Let's now click on that, and then double click. So we are failing this particular line, something about submit rating. Okay, that's good, something we haven't done so far. Submit rating, since you can read the hints over here. Basically, what we should do is we should really say this should be one of the downloaded apps for sure. So that's why we can submit. That's why we can submit a rating. If the app has been downloaded, we're going to go to the corresponding objects in the link store. For example, GoodNotes 5, right? In the case of this, if we want to submit the GoodNotes 5, you can see GoodNotes 5 is one of the downloaded apps. It's one of the existing name. So that means we have to go to the corresponding App Store objects and then submit a rating over there. We got all the helper method we need already. Okay, so the implementation shouldn't be too bad. Let's take a look. Let's now go back to our code to implement submit rating. Okay, do we have any error message showing over here? It doesn't seem like we got any, but it's good for now. Okay, why don't we just try account over here? Let's see, submit rating. Okay, good. You can see now we gotta distinguish between them. Either the name of the app is not really in the downloaded apps array. So we're gonna check to see if the name of the app we want to submit a rating to, whether it's one of the names in the array. If it is, we can submit a rating to the corresponding objects. Otherwise, we gotta set this error status over here. And for this one here, I'm gonna do a little bit of back practice by copy and pasting the code, and we'll leave that as an exercise for you to do the helper method. Okay. So what I will do is I'm just going to go to let me see where I need to go to. Where can I check to see? I think for the download over here, right? Download over here. This one will tells me whether the name exists or not. So I'm gonna copy and paste this fragment of code for submit rating. However, I'll leave it as an exercise for you to really eliminate the code duplicates by declaring a helper method. I'll leave that as an exercise for you. If you got trouble doing it, reach out to me. All right. So let me copy and paste. So what I will do is I'm gonna copy and paste this code here, right? It's gonna compile, but I'm gonna say exercise. Create a helper method for the below code that finds whether or not the name exists. And then invoke this helper method in submit rating, and I think it is at least 2 places, right? And also download. Okay, I'll leave them to you. Good. Okay, so now we're going to do some conditional, right? If the name actually exists, that means we can submit a rating. Otherwise, we cannot. In that case, we will have to actually do this error status over here, right? Hopefully, the logic is clear to you. Okay, let's see here. Start a test over here. Do we also need to make sure we actually set the status message accordingly, right? After the rating has been submitted successfully. But what actually needs to be done to actually go to the corresponding objects of, let's say we are trying to submit rating to this, and that should correspond to changing the rating score for this app over here. We'll do that just in a moment. Let me set a status message first. At the end, I'm simply going to say I'm going to say this.status, similar to this case over here. I'm going to use string.formats, right? String.formats over here, and then paste the message over here. Okay, and then I'm going to change a new line over here. Okay, let's see what we should put. Rating score of how many, right? So this should be one of the parameter over here. That should be a score. It should be integer, $D. I meant percentage D. Sorry. Whenever I say dollar, most likely I really meant percentage. You can see my pattern here. And that should be 수량, so that should be percentage S. Okay, so that should be score over here, right? Score corresponds to percentage D, and also the name is the name. So successfully submitted for. So this should be the name of the app, right? So now percentage S. So that should be the name of the app over here. Okay, so far so good. So that'll be the status. So now how do we actually go ahead and submit that rating? How do we get to the corresponding app? This.get app. That's the helper method we just did earlier, didn't we? Right here. I'll leave that to you to actually review this part here. So let's go back to get app. Go back to submit rating over here, right? So we'll say this.get app is going to be name of app. That one is going to return some app objects. You can simply say directly dot submit rating and then the score. We're done. That's a one-line solution. Alternatively, what you can do is something like this. I'll just show to you quickly. You can say app is assigned to this.get app, name of app over here, and then you can say app dot submit rating score. This also works, but it's 2 lines. You can either use these 2 lines, or equivalently, you can use this line. Either way. All right. Let me go back to the started tests over here. Let's now run the test. And we got a green bar. Awesome. Okay. It seems like we got. Do we have the last one? Okay, we got the last one. Okay. Let's see which method we should look after. Now, let's now uncomment this last test method, right? Okay. Let's see this. I would suggest once you have seen my solution, it will be very beneficial if you can try to redo the lab by yourself and without looking at the video anymore. Once you understand exactly what I really meant by every walkthrough of the detail, you can try to reproduce in your way of thinking. That's what I really suggest, right? Hopefully you can do in a much shorter time than the video, right? Let's see the last one. Do we have any new method to really introduce to make it compile? No, you can see there's no red cross over here. Let me now run the test, and we got a red bar, right? Let's now double click. Which line are we failing? It's actually the line that will actually fail after the uninstall over here, right? So now it seems like we gotta implement this uninstall properly. Okay, it seems like. However, I do want to give you a little bit more exercise for this method itself. It's really a good challenge for you to have. But I'm going to give you enough hints. Let me do the following. Let's see. Also, you can see after the uninstall, we're also going to set some error status message over here, right? Let me just copy this message here. Let me go back to the account over here. Let me go to uninstall, right? You can see I got some comments over here. Check to see if the name is actually there, right? So let me just so this is the message where it is succeeded. Again, we're also going to use this part here to check to see if the name exists, right? Exists. That's why it's really worth for you to do a helper method. Okay. Okay. So methods in submit rating, download, and uninstall. So once you got this helper method, you can use them. You can invoke that 3 times by using these three methods rather than repeating that 3 times. It's really beneficial for you to do that exercise. But for now, I'm just going to copy that. Copy that. Let me go to uninstall. Okay. So this part here, I'm going to say name exists, right? Okay. So I'm going to follow the logic. If existing, remove the app. If does not exist, do nothing and report the error status, right? So what I'll do is I'm going to say if the name exists, in that case, I'm going to remove it. And not only that, I'm also going to report the status of success. Okay, so at the end of the if branch, I'm going to say this dot status over here is assigned to string dot formats over here. Okay, put it there. And then I'm just going to delete it. Okay, enter. Okay, let me just go back to that line. Okay, after the comma, hit enter over here, right? So GoodNotes 5, apparently that's the name of the app, right? So that'll be %s string, okay, name of app over here. So %s over here, I'm gonna say name of app. Successfully uninstalled for Suyang, right? It's the name of the account owner. So %s this dot name. Okay. All right, that's when it's a success for the removal. Otherwise, if it's not success because the app simply does not exist, so nothing to remove. In that case, we'll still use this error message from before. Put it there, right? So this comment over here about initially, I'll just cut that into a better place to make more sense, maybe in the beginning. Okay. Fix the indentation. So now what you got to do is about removal, right? So this will be exercise for you. Exercise. Remove the name of app from the string, from the names of downloaded apps array. That's the your exercise, right? I'm gonna suggest one possible solution for you, and then you can try to implement it yourself. I'm gonna have some visual hints for you, but I think you don't really want to just copy my code. You should really try to do it by yourself too. If you got trouble implementing it, you can reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help you, but you should really try it first. Okay, and then I'm gonna say see the visual hints. Let me now sketch the solution for you. Okay, let's now move on to, so I think as far as the starter tests are concerned, for now I'm going to stop implementing any further code, but I passed almost all the test cases except for test account number 6, which will only turn to a green bar, turn to a green if turn to a pass if you implement this part by yourself, right? I'll leave that to you. Okay, let me now move on to this particular part over here, right? So now we talk about how you can remove an element from the array. Let me give you some visual hints. It's not too bad. So let's say, okay, to thick. So here I want to remove an item from an array. Okay, let's see. And I don't even need to use the names of the app. Let me just make it even easier. Okay, let's say if I have names over here. If I have this particular array, let's say I simply got names of persons, right? So you can see the idea for, you can also apply the idea to the names of downloaded apps as well. Okay, so let's say I simply got this. Let's say 0, 1, and then 2. Let's say the number of names is actually 3. Is equal to 3. Okay. So that means it's really pointing to, conceptually, it's really pointing to this particular slot over here that's actually null. Right? So currently it's pointing to null. Okay, and everything else is also, everything onwards is also null. Okay, so this is a counter value for number of names over here, none. Okay, and then let's say what names do we have? Let's say currently we got Alan, also Mark, and also Tom. Let's say we got these three names. So what will be the procedure to actually remove them? Let me describe the procedure visually to you. You will translate it into algorithm or method code, and try to get a green bar, from the JUnit test. That will be your exercise. Let's say what we want to do is, now let's say we want to remove Mark. Okay, so here we're assuming that the name actually exists. Let's say we want to remove this particular Mark over here. Okay. Visually, it's very easy. Okay, basically what you want to think about is, you want to somehow, conceptually, you can think about, you just assign this slot into null. Okay, so what I will do is, I will do it again, but let me just do it first. Think about it, simply remove this, right? You know where Mark is, right? You can find out exactly where Mark is. It should be index 1. Conceptually, once you remove a Mark from here, assigning that to null, it becomes like this. And then you want to say, starting from the index of Mark, starting from there, you want to shift everything to the left by 1 position, meaning that you're going to shift Tom to the left by 1 position. And then after that, you also want to make sure this slot is also turn into null. Let me say it again. Okay, let me just try to do, maybe write it down. Okay, step number 1. Assign index of Mark to null. Okay, so what this will do is, conceptually, you will simply just remove Mark from here. Okay, and then you're going to shift number 2 for all elements at Mark index plus 1. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Mark used to be here, and then Mark index plus 1 is starting from index 2, starting from here, and then there, right? Well, you can see it's in this case only Tom, because we only got 3 names in there. So for every, so you might need a loop, and then you want to shift all of that to the left by 1 position. Okay, so for all elements at the Mark index plus 1, in this case starting from Tom, right? Shift them to the left by 1 position. Okay, this one is something that's let me show to you. Okay, you can think about, in this case, how do we shift? How do we shift Tom to the left by 1 position? The way to do it is, you want to make sure this index here is now going to point to wherever index 2 is pointing to, right? So you're going to say names at position 1 is assigned to names at position 2. That's what you're going to do. So what it does is, it's going to simply create a reference over there, and then it's simply just going to be something like that, right? Conceptually. Or to draw it better, you can think about this is simply just going to point to also Tom. Okay, and then you're gonna do this for every element that's actually after every element after Mark plus 1 index. Okay, so once you have done that, you want to make sure you don't have this duplicate aliases, like this and this. Finally, number 3. Also important. Number 3, you want to make sure you actually assign the names assign the last non-null slot to null. So that means this is the last one, right? It happened to be the last one. So you want to assign that to be null. Okay? And then you want the decrements. Finally, you want decrements as well. Let's say decrements number 4. Decrements NON. So it's going to be, rather than here, it's now going to be conceptually pointing to over here. NON. Right? Used to be 3. Used to be 3. And now it will be actually 2. Alright, so these are the 4 steps. The reason that I just don't want to give you the code directly is because you really want to practice how to really do this removal yourself. Alright? And the most important step is about number 2. Number 2, you might just need a loop to complete it, to accomplish that, right? I would suggest maybe try to follow the same kind of idea for the visual sketch and try to use, work out a case where you got maybe 4 or 5 names in the array. And they maybe want to remove maybe something at index 1. So how do you shift everything from index 2 to the left by 1 position, like in this way? Think about it before you code it out. All right, I think I have covered enough actually to really go over with you the solution for lab number 1. All right, so that's about what I want to do. I really hope that you can gain the most out of it for your learning from lab number 1. I may not be able to do this solution for every lab for you, but I'll try to see what I can do for every lab to actually give you some feedback. All right, that's about it. If you got any trouble understanding any logic I have explained, reach out to me. Okay, good luck.